Hello there. To those who already know me, hello and thank you for being with me on my journey. To those who don't know me, my name is Kelly Cotton. I'm a 40-year-old mother and I've got a story to tell. Today is the 28th of October and it's 2018. But on the 28th of October 2012, my family moved to a place called Save the Family in North Wales. Um, Now, originally, Save the Family was a place where um, either people who'd been in domestic violence took refuge, but it had actually become a place for homelessness. And at that particular time, I was homeless. So, if I just slightly backtrack, I want to just sort of do a build up to why I ended up sort of going to Save the Family and what was going on. The reason that I do these live, by the way, is because I don't have proper internet connection, so I'm not able to put together nice little fancy videos and upload them because it would just take me days to be able to upload off of a wireless connection. Um, Unfortunately, I live in what I call a sliding door world where every year I hit significant dates where my life took a different path, and I live in this, I suppose, this memory of what could have been, what should have been, and there's lots of significant dates along the way. So this is actually going to be a part one. So today is 6 years ago since I actually moved in to Save the Family, and then I'm going to do another one on the 13th of December, which is when Aaron and Faith were actually taken, and then I'm going to do another one on the 17th of July next year, which would then be the anniversary of the day that the orders were given for Aaron and Faith to be placed for forced adoption, and also the day that I was gagged. As you know, I have draconian gagging orders on me that I cannot name Aaron and Faith, and I cannot name PC Stephen Lewis, who was the instrument in actually removing the children, but it was Cheryl Osborne, a social worker, who committed perjury in order to take the children. Now, Save the Family has been going for pretty much 30 years, and it was originally set up by a woman called Edna Speed. Do you remember when you did the shame video? You helped save me. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, more to you, actually. You saved yourself. I haven't saved anybody. You took the time to reach out and learn something new and save yourself, really. But today is a really hard day for me, and I've just literally the last week gone through a really bad battle myself, because I do deal with quite hard days of depression, and I do go into very, very low places where I do go into quite suicidal thoughts, and I do battle. And I literally a couple of days ago, after I got Aaron and Faith's letter, I went into a huge 2-day battle, and come through the other side as I always do. But I just wanted to explain something. So people know that in October 2010, I challenged George Osborne in the papers and in through the radio with their changeover for the benefits system, and I basically said, whoa, 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 hang on a minute. You know, there's families that are caught up in this, and you need to understand where these families are coming from before you sit down in your think tank and make decisions about how your decisions are going to have consequences on families. And what I'd basically said was, I was a single mother with 4 children, and I was on benefits. Had I was on disability, and I was classed as a single mum. And I was originally a youth worker who was made medically retired because I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Now, for those of you who don't know what Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is basically a collagen deficiency in our C2C3 collagen, I think it is. It's a mutation that basically means that we don't produce collagen in the same way as most people. Now, the majority of people, once they get to 19, stop producing collagen, and what we do is we overproduce. And also, as somebody who's naturally fed all of my children, what happens is we release prolactin into our body, and it makes us a lot more floppy. Now, I'm obviously writing a book about what's going on, because you can only give little snippets and take little snippets, and you end up missing things out. And there's things that went on, back in my life that might have seemed very insignificant, but then later on have become very significant. So just to sort of briefly just say that when I had my first son, Liam, who's now 22, I had, can I just say, I really, really, really appreciate comments, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the comments in a bit, because I also am also Aspie, and I end up getting distracted and muddled up, and I'm not reading off any notes. I'm just literally, talking from my heart and trying to do the best that I can to try to put this together. But what happens with my trolls is I either miss something, or I say something in a different context to how I've originally said it, and everybody wants to jump on me and say, oh, she said something different or whatever. So if I just explain that when Liam was a baby and when he was 7 months old, no worries, Lizzie, it's completely fine. I love that there are people here, and I love that I might say something that might be able to keep you keeping your children, or just keep you going, because I know how hard it is on a daily basis to get your head off the pillow when you're dealing with such grief. And people don't literally, seriously, I'm going to kill somebody, I really am. Now, another matter going on, somebody else has just posted who I need some solid boundaries with. And completely distracted me yet again. So basically, when Liam was 7 months old, I was taken into A&E, and nobody really understood what was going on. I was literally sat in the car. I was feeding Liam in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden I had this it was literally like somebody had got an egg and gone bang, and it just went poof, and I didn't know what was going on, and I just hit a high-pitched screaming. I went into quite a paralysed seizure, and I was taken into A&E, and I was diagnosed with a what did they call it, a conversion disorder, and I was refused medical treatment, and I was taken to mental health. Now, every time prior to 22 I went to A&E, I was always taken to mental health, because everybody kept saying there was nothing wrong with me. I now know that I had literally slipped the discs in my neck and down into my spine, into my other discs. And what happened is, because I'd been naturally feeding, I'd produced too much prolactin, and I had basically gone so floppy that my body had just literally cut out. Now, because on my medical records I have that I was a sexual abuse victim as a child, everybody has put everything that I ever do down to this. If I'm having a down day, it must be because I was abused as a child. If I'm complaining about body aches, it must be because I was abused as a child. If I have a bad day, it must be because I was abused as a child. And therefore, if you're abused as a child, you're a liar and you're a attention seeker. And this was the circle that I kept going around. So basically, in this particular time, it just went onto the medical notes that this was a conversion disorder. I wasn't diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome until I was 22. And as far as I was concerned, this was the end of the matter. I finally had a diagnosis. Everybody had to just accept that I had this diagnosis. Nobody could ever question me again. Nobody could ever tell me that I was a liar and attention seeker. And obviously, if I went to A&E, I always thought that I would just be treated as having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and this is the way it would go. Now, as I was saying earlier on in the video, in 2010, I challenged George Osborne on basically the way that he was structuring the benefit system, because I actually wanted to come out of the benefit system. I've always wanted to be a provider for my family. I've always had this ambition to get to a certain level so I could revolutionize the whole way that psychology works. Because as people know, I'm anti-diagnosis, I'm anti-labeling, because the majority of people face trauma, and because they've been through trauma, they then get basically branches and labeled, whether that be depression, borderline personality, narcissistic trait, um, bipolar, ADHD, all these different things. But at the end of the day, they're systemic from trauma. Some of them are personality types, but at the end of the day, it's just you. You know, my personality is I'm just Kelly. It's a Kelly thing. But if I was sitting with a psychologist, they would come up with lots of different labels. But what they basically do is they just put it through a DSM-5 and it runs through SPS data, and they come up with a lot of tick boxes that something that you might have been through that then becomes this diagnosis, this label. And then everybody sits under the mental health label and everybody becomes this label that they've been given. What a load of fucking bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Then they medicate you, and then literally you are defined, and that's it. Untreatable, nothing you can do about it. It's just who you are. It is a crock of shit, absolute crock of shit. Psychology is years and years and years behind. We're still talking about Freudian days. You know, we're still going under Maslow, and all of these things have already been discredited. Even ADHD, it's just a label. You know, even borderline personality was designed by a lady called, oh, I do know her name, but it's just gone blank. But basically, she labelled it. So just like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a guy called Ehlers, a guy called Danlos sat down, came down with a cluster of systematic things that have in my body that I then get defined by two people by their name. But it doesn't define me. It's not who I am. But the problem is I chose, when I first ever was told that I would be in a wheelchair and I would never walk again, I made the decision that that was their belief system, that wasn't mine. And unless I chose to accept it as a truth, then it didn't need to become my reality. Well done, Lizzie. So, you know, at the end of the day, and just what Lizzie was saying, is about support systems. Now, as a single mother, you either have the support of your family, you have support of your friends or your community. But because I'd gone into foster care when I was 15, I had a codependent relationship with social services, where I suppose social services to me were my parents. If I ever had any issues, then it was easy for me to turn to social services to ask some questions. And when Liam and Daniel were children, I had an indicative budget in place just in case I ever went into A&E, if I ever found that I was ill. And both of my children attended children carers. I've never really dealt with children's social services. I've always dealt with adult social services. And because I was in a university, when you're in any form of education, it's changed names now, but it used to be called a SIN plan. So basically, if you do have any labels, then the education board has to make reasonable adjustments for any person in education. So if you're dyslexic, then obviously there are provisions to be put into place. So if you're taking exams, you don't just sit there with a pen and paper and be assessed in the same way as everybody else. So if you're Asperger's, then that's the same. I'm just watching my battery because I'm not actually close enough to my charger at the moment. It's just flashed me with 20%, so I may just move around. I'm trying to keep as static as possible because, as you know, I'm a pacer, and as I'm doing these, I walk around and it makes people dizzy with the background going around. So basically, because I was at university, I had an amazing adult social worker, and he had literally banged against everybody to make sure I had DLA, make sure that I had all of the proper supports in place, and he was absolutely brilliant. And I've never ever questioned social services ever in this way. The only thing that I've ever felt that was a negative about social services was that they were underfunded, under-resourced and under-budgeted. And as an individual, you have to push for what you're entitled to. You can even go for judicial reviews to force that you have the correct indicative budget in place for yourself or for your children. Now, I'd pretty much lived on my own since my divorce in 2002, I think it was, with Liam and Daniel, and I lived pretty much a suburban life. I lived in, a 3-bedroom detached house. I was on disability. I was still at university and I was working. And I had all of the correct supports in place. I had a really good circle of friends. I had an amicable relationship with my ex-husband, and life was pretty good. My dad used to ring me on a Thursday. I used to go down south to see my mum, at holidays, things like that, if I had weekends away. And I pretty much had a cushy life, apart from the fact that I was single. And I think I just found life so much easier being single, not man-hating in any way, shape or form. But when you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you live very structured and you have to live in a certain way to make sure that you manage your body every day. And I always found having different people in my life quite difficult. When Liam were younger, I did have 2 sets of carers who pretty much become 2 of my best friends. And it was just literally to make sure that in the mornings and the evenings that everything was sort of on target to get the kids to school, and that we had a proper structure in the evening, and it worked really well. As the boys got older, obviously that fell away, but they did remain at children's carers because it was a great support system for children who pretty much have physical conditions themselves, and also with a parent that is up and down with their health. And then in 2007, I was literally just due to go back to uni. I'd already graduated. I graduated in psychology, but I decided not to go on to do my master's. I got into coaching. I joined the coaching academy, become quite good friends actually with Jonathan Jay, who ran the coaching academy. I'd got into NLP. I'd moved on to Tony Robbins, and I'd got into pretty much every form of therapy, because I was sick and tired of our system and the way that counselling, psychotherapy, psychology and all this way was running, because it was never dealing with the root of my problem. In fact, what it was doing was masking it, and I wasn't willing to work the way that the system did. I'm probably just going to go and grab my charger and shoot into the kitchen and chat to you, because it just might make it easier, but I'm probably going to wait until it just flags up a minute. Now, when I met Stephen, I was really naive. I had been on morphine. I'd been on 800 mils of tramadol a day. I was on morphine. I was absolutely... This is previous to meeting Stephen. This is a bit way back. I'd had a catheter. I used to have constant braces on my hands, because if you can see like the way my knuckles move, just to give you an idea, let me see. Turn my eyelids inside out, just to give you a slight introduction to how it works. So you can probably just hear that. So my knees do it, my ankles do it, my toes do it, my discs do it in my back. I have scoliosis in my back. I have a tilt in my pelvis. I have no cartilage in my knees, no fluid in my knees. My ankles come out, my toes come out, my hips play around. My right side of my body is probably the most dominant, weakest side. My left is starting to go. Now, because I said I was going to do this in 3 parts, because I'm going backwards to how I ended up on the 28th going to save the family. Because I'd been on morphine, when I met Stephen and he told me that he was on methadone, I didn't judge it in maybe the way that I potentially should have done. I got speaking more and more about his story. I understood his past, and I did know that he'd been on heroin. And as far as I was concerned, that was his past. And I wasn't willing to judge anybody for the past. And I was quite naive, because I have never been associated with a drug world, as much as people know that I have a legal precedence to be able to use cannabis, but not the ones that you all think. It's to do with pain management, and I was an experiment for cannabis oil and CBTs and things to see whether or not this works with pain management. Not a drug addict in any way, shape or form, but I'd rather smoke cannabis, or not even smoke cannabis, I would rather ingest cannabis rather than being associated with morphine and things like that. And when I met Stephen, he told me that he was a decorator, he'd had an abscess, and also he was waiting for surgery on his shoulder. So my head didn't quite see the polarities between morphine and methadone. And it was actually a friend of mine who pulled me to the side and said, I need you to understand something. And you're being very naive, and it explained to me how people on methadone go through lots of different cycles. But I'm not a very judgmental person, and at the time I had just I was very into Buddhism at the time. I was little muck dabbling with Hare Krishna. I was going to different churches. I was in different sort of pots, and I was still searching myself. But I got into a relationship with Stephen, and at that time I was at the university. I was part of a scheme, and met Kelly. She's a lovely person, a great mum. It just disappeared, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry, guys, because I don't actually know you. I know I meet people, but I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people since 2010. And by the way, when I get ratty on my social media, sometimes it's just one person that's pissed me off, yet sometimes you think it's all of you. But I'm having to be really strong with my boundaries at the moment, because I've got 2 little boys and myself, and I can be naive, and I can put myself in vulnerable situations, and I can I can be one of these people who always sees the good in people, and sometimes I'm the sort of person who will put my head into a lion's mouth, and I'll say, I know, but they've got toothache, I know they're a roaring lion right now, but if we can just get that tooth out, then they won't be roaring so bad. And I've always been like this. I've never been one that judges people, because I don't want people to judge me, and if they did, there's so much that people could judge me by. I've just done the best that I can as a mother who's been trying to support her children. I've taxi driven, I've worked as a cleaner, I've worked in Taylor Plan, I've worked in Ann Summers, I've been an escort, as people know. I've done lots of different things to just keep me and my children above water. But when Stephen and I separated, which was actually in 2009, it was August 2009, and I'd had Aaron, and I literally, after the separation, found out that I was pregnant with Faith. Now, there had been domestic violence in our relationship. The first time there was domestic violence was when I found out I was pregnant with Aaron, and he told me it wasn't his, and yeah, it was quite a challenging time. And what I was finding with Stephen is every week he would go and pick up his methadone and get Valium. He was downing it, necking this stuff and drinking, and then he was coming back and taking it out on me. So I did end the relationship, and I pretty much lost the security of my entire life, because I lost my home, because I'd gone from being me, running my home, running my bills, to living with Stephen, having the faith in Stephen leading this, learning that bills weren't paid, finding out that he'd taken a Provident loan out in my name. And when we separated, I even went to like CSA, CBA and all of that to try to find out how could I have these debts moved from me, and there's nothing that I could do about it. And when we separated as well, him and his sister cleared out my bank account, I'm just grabbing my charger, taking pretty much my rent money and everything out of there. So I literally fell out of the property that I was living in at that time, and luckily it was a church that I was involved in who'd put up the deposit and a guarantor so I could private rent. I was living in a lovely little house. It was a tiny little mews. This is when the Daily Mail decided to write a story about me, which was complete bullshit because actually the original article, which was in the Chorley and Leyland Guardian, was a lovely, beautiful article. It was about a business that I'd set up called Challenge Britain, and I was basically challenging the people of Britain from negative ways of thinking to positive ways of thinking, from a can't do attitude to a can do attitude. And that's all I was doing. I was challenging George Osborne and those in government to change the word from disabled to enabled, to basically support people with physical conditions rather than disable us, and also, to keep families together. Now, when I started doing this, my mind towards social services started changing, and I was starting to get clients in the benefit system where I was finding that they had had long-term depression, long-term labels, and when we got to the root of it, there was childhood trauma. But this wasn't childhood trauma that was caused by their own family. This was childhood trauma that was caused in foster care. And I've started asking questions on what the fuck is going on. So I've gone from being this mindset of people that social services is this lovely people who basically support families. Yes, they have budget issues. Yes, they have staff crisis. But at the end of the day, they were lovely people. And my mind was, you had to have abused children and be in prison in order for children to be taken from you. I didn't understand this well, but I did know as a mother with a physical condition that it made it very scary when social services suggested to me about having a respite foster carers for if I was ever in hospital. So if I can just explain something, I'm just going to go and grab my charger. Now, in 2010, when I was pregnant with Faith, I'd hemorrhaged with Aaron, and it's a normal standard thing with people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I'm just sticking the charger in the bottom. Yeah, hemorrhaging is pretty normal for people, for mothers with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It comes secondary, I'm afraid, with the condition. And I'd had a very, very tight plan in place because when I had Liam and Daniel, I wasn't diagnosed, and I'd hemorrhaged with both of my children. And in fact, with Daniel, I'd gone into premature labour at 29 weeks, and I'd been kept on a drip to keep me out of labour. And then eventually I was induced and gave birth to him a little bit earlier. With Liam, my waters broke 3 or 4 weeks early, and yeah, so basically this is for another video. I don't want to sort of crowd this whole video with it because I really want to talk about what saved the family and lead up to why Aaron and Faith were taken and how it happened. Now, what I'd basically done when I was going into to have Faith to give birth to Faith, I'd spoken to the health visitor about putting a plan in place because I was being told not to go through with the pregnancy. In fact, the doctors were quite concerned and said because I had only given birth pretty much a year previously, that the chances that my body would not be able to take it, and it would either ultimately put me into a wheelchair permanently again, or ultimately I wasn't going to come out of this labour. Chances are I wouldn't make it through it. I decided that was a load of bollocks and it was all going to be okay, and I wanted to go through with the pregnancy, but I wanted to put proper safeguarding in place, and I wanted a proper support system around my children. Hence why my daughter's called Faith, by the way, because it was actually quite a challenging situation, and it was a daily thing where I was wondering whether this was going to be okay or whether it wasn't going to be okay. God, I look like shit. I'm so tired, I really am. So basically, we had what was called a team around the children meeting, and the health visitor ran this and invited children's social services and adult social services to come together to put an indicative budget in place and a plan in place for when I went into labour with Faith.
So because obviously I had 3 other children, Liam was, I think, 13 at the time, Daniel was about 11, and Aaron was just 1 year old. Now this is all significant because when I tell you what grounds they used for Aaron and Faith to be taken, you will be able to work it out straight away on how that was a lie and how wrong that was based on the information that I've already just told you. So basically, we had this meeting. It was basically called I think it's a maternity plan basically, and it would happen for any other mother who was a high risk pregnancy. But because I didn't have a father around, I didn't have my parents around, I didn't have family support, and because I'd had the relationship that I had with Stephen, I didn't particularly have many of my friends around either, and I'd become quite untrusting with people around my children. So I preferred to use the services. So what we basically did was we used the friends that I had, which was the members of church and one of my old carers actually, and we put together a 24-hour, a 72-hour, and up to a 2-week plan of action in the event of me going into labour. Now the doctors decided to induce me, so we had an absolute concrete day, and it was prior to when all the complications could come in, so it was about 4 weeks early, and obviously everybody had a date. I tell you what, I can't believe how lucky I was knowing what I do now, because I didn't realise how close I was to a Section 47. Now, had they done a Section 47, Faith wouldn't have been coming out of that hospital, and I wouldn't have been going back to Aaron and Faith. I didn't know this shit happened. I was just la-di-da-di-da, all oblivious, thinking, yep, we've got this support plan in place, everything's great. Now, what the health visitor had arranged for was, prior to me going into hospital, we had a number of people who were looking after Liam, Daniel, Aaron and Faith. And actually what I'd done the day I was going into hospital was Liam had actually gone off to watch 50 Cent, because I didn't want Liam sort of worrying about me while we were going through all the labour side. And as it was, the induction didn't work and I didn't go into labour until the next day. And Liam decided that he wanted to be at home, and we had one of my friends remain with Liam, and Liam actually was there with his brother and his younger brother, and my friend, to be able to bring the kids up to the hospital. And then once we got home, I was meant to have an indicative budget in place to support me for the first 6 weeks, because I still chose to breastfeed. And that never happened. Never happened. In fact, I had to issue complaints. In fact, I was onto the phone to social services in the end, because when Faith was 6 months old, I'd picked up the car seat, and as I'd done that, I'd slipped the discs in my back, and I literally couldn't move. Now, I'd rang my friends, and my friends were going, you're going to have to ring social services. They're going to have to come in and get this plan in. And in fact, I was on the phone going, if you don't bloody get this plan in, I'll be calling child protection myself. And as it was, everything was good. Complaints were issued against Preston Social Services. The indicative budget was put in place. I had somebody to come in the morning to be able to assist. Now, we started having problems because there's support for adults with physical conditions and there's support for children with physical conditions, but there isn't support for parents with physical conditions supporting children. So originally, I had Lancashire Care Services coming in. But it was ridiculous because we'd be getting up in the morning and I'd be trying to bend down to put Aaron's shoes on, and the carers were having to go, we've been told we can't assist with the children, we can only assist with you. And on one occasion, I literally tried to get Aaron's shoe on. Oh, is that one of my kids? Might be one of my kids. I was literally trying to get Aaron's shoe on and I flipped him backwards. But it was all quite comical. Right, just 2 seconds. I am here. Oh, what's happened to my phone? Yeah, there we go. So basically, what I was saying was there was a support plan for somebody with a physical condition and not someone with children. But so in the end, they eventually got a company in called Mosaic. So Mosaic were able to support us properly. So I had somebody to come in the hour in the morning, and that was literally to just be there to assist me to get my kids up for school, get ready, and if my back was playing up, then I had people around to support me. And the carers would just do the things like, you know, wash up all the breakfast stuff, put the breakfast stuff away, you know, have a quick tidy around in the morning, and we would get off out of this out to school. And they were also available for if I couldn't actually get the kids to school, then they would literally leave at like 8:45 and drop the kids off at school on the way, and they were licensed to do so. And then 2 hours a week, I had somebody to come in to do full-blown domestic chores, and then for an hour and a half in the evening, I had somebody coming in to literally make sure that, you know, I was able to get all the tea done, bath the kids, and get ready. And one of the things with bathing two small babies when you've got slipped discs was one of the risk assessments was if I was to lean over the bath and my back went, whether or not I would pretty much drown my kids. You know, drop the kids in the bath, stuff like that. So basically, the carer was in the house to make sure that the kids were in and out the bath safely and everything was okay. Now, this is how I thought social services worked, that if a parent had a physical condition, that they would bridge the gap between where the challenges were. My kids are a little bit unsettled. Hang on, 2 seconds. Now, you can't see me, but you might be able to hear me. If I just open this, you might be able to hear me. There you go. You can't see me, but you can hear me. I'll be out in there in a minute. And basically, we had this indicative budget in place, and everything was really, 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 really good, and it worked. And I had gone self-employed, and I'm just wondering whether to cut off and come back on in a moment. I might do. No, they're okay. So yeah, I had this in place. It was working really well. We'd ended up moving over to employing somebody, and I had one carer because it was getting too much with 4 or 5 carers in a week, which is another story. And everything was really good. What we decided was, because I was self-employed and working from home, that we were just about to move and upgrade from being in a mews to going back into a normal detached house. I'd also considered moving down south because my parents had pretty much said to me that there was nothing that they could do to support me while I was living up north, but they were happy if I moved down south, that they would be able to help out, you know, if needed, rather than having this structured, you know, sort of provisions in place. And so it's sort of fallen through to move down south. So I'd found a lovely little place on the same estate, and I'd given up notice on my tenancy, and we'd gone through all of the checks, sorted everything out, and then literally one of my checks had failed, and I'd learned that Stephen had taken this Provident loan out, and it had caused a default on my account, so the property fell through. I ended up going into the travelling for a couple of weeks while I sussed out what to do. And in the end, I was trying to find another guarantor, and I couldn't get a guarantor. And I ended up going into an interim property on social housing. Now, because I was self-employed, there'd been issues with my housing benefit, to the point that this had then escalated to an eviction order. Now, I took the matter to court and said that, hang on a minute, this isn't my issue. I'm on housing benefit, I'm bridged by housing benefit, the forms have messed up, and this matter needs to be sorted prior, to any form of eviction. But the judge basically introduced me to the fact that it was an interim property and that I had no legal jurisdiction to sort this. Now, the sad thing about it is on August the 7th, I pushed and pushed and pushed this eviction to the point that it had got to bailiffs, and because I thought it would all get sorted. Now, got an advocate, got it sorted, all the housing benefit was paid to them, it all got backdated, it all got sorted, but they still went through with the bailiff eviction on the 7th of August 2012. And I was told that social services were going to come in and they were going to take the kids into foster care while I sorted this matter out. And I was like, nah, I didn't want social services coming in. I hadn't asked for this. And they certainly weren't taking my kids into foster care. So I left this interim property on this eviction day in a taxi with a couple of black bags. I left all the content of my property in the house. I was told I had 7 days until I needed to clear it out. And I didn't really know what to do. And I got the taxi to drive me to Pontins in Southport. And I literally just checked it. It was school holidays anyway. And I just literally checked into Pontins. And it was really cool actually, because we sort of thought that as a family that it would be really good to actually relocate to Southport. It wasn't in Leyland because I didn't want to live in Leyland. It was by the sea. It was lovely. I'd managed to find a church there that had some private rentals. And even though we were at Pontins, and we were at Pontins for about 3 weeks, Liam had managed to get himself into college. Aaron and Faith were in nursery. I was working. And then we upgraded to the Premier Inn. And then at the weekends, we were staying in a suite in the Ramada Hotel. And then literally, I'd gone down to London. I'd taken my kids with me. Yes, we are classed as no fixed abode, but we were pretty much staying between Ramada Hotels and Premier Travel Inns. And I was paying for this myself. It wasn't getting paid for by, government or anything like that. And I'd come down to London. I was coming down for a course, but I went to see a friend of mine. And this is a friend from years ago who first ever started my curiosity with forced adoption, because she was a forced adoption who was abused by her adoptive parents. And I'd always sort of helped my friend deal with her trauma. I'm coming back through now. And, right, you got me back now. And let me just do my coat up. So literally, my friend is another story, and that will be sort of more in my book. I'm just going to put you down while I put my coat down on, but I am here. So literally, I'd gone down to London, and my friend had told me that her daughter had had her child taken as a result of being in domestic violence, and she was up for forced adoption. And I'm like, what? Seriously? This is absolutely crazy. So there's me in the middle of transportation. I've got, a car hire. I was driving an Audi T3 at the time, and I had my kids in the car. I had obviously my stuff in the car. The stuff that had been in the previous property had now been put into storage, and I was heading down to, I think at that particular point, I was heading down for a Kevin Green seminar, who's one of the secret millionaires. And I was literally at the police station in Guildford discussing with the police about what was going on with my friend's child, why she was losing her child. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call. And it was Lancashire, Leyland Social Services. And they basically wanted to know where I was. And I was like, well, I'm out of your area. It's got nothing to do with you. And they were sort of asking me questions, what was going on with the kids, blah, blah, blah. And I just said to them, I don't need your services. We're completely fine. I'm making money. I'm leveraging money. We were literally just on our way to my mum's at the time. So I just said, look, we're staying at my mum's, and yeah, I'm coming back up to Southport. We've got a property that we're moving into in October, and that was pretty much the way it was going to go. But my mind was changing on, hang on a minute, these people are going to get my kids, and I'm learning about forced adoption at the same time. So I literally went down to see Kevin Green, and Kevin Green is basically a wealth expert on property and stuff like that. And I'd made a comment to the social worker, and I'd said, look, with all due respect, if I come in and see you, all you're going to do is take my children into foster care and leave me out to sort of sort this situation. And I know how this system works in terms of children going into foster care. Getting them out is not so easy. I didn't know about forced adoption, but I was certainly starting to learn about it. So anyway, I didn't hear anything about it. And to be honest, it had actually taken them 5 weeks after my eviction to even make a phone call to me when they were actually meant to be there on the day of the eviction. So I didn't actually hear about them for 5 weeks. And then they were starting to go around to my ex-husbands and things like that. So anyway, I was considered as out of their jurisdiction. Everything was fine, but I was starting to panic a bit because I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this is a bit vulnerable. I've got to get things sorted. So anyway, we went back to Southsea. We were back in the Ramada Hotel. Aaron and Faith were still, it was school holidays. Aaron and Faith still had their nursery. Liam had his college placement, and Daniel was at school. But what I'd done with Daniel is Daniel started to now live with his dad, and then he would come to me at weekends instead. So he had the consistency with school. And then once I was settled, Daniel would then come back to me. But I was still thinking about moving down south. And I was still sort of looking at all of the options that were available to me. And then I got a phone call to say there was going to be another week delay on moving into this property that we were going into. And I was starting to panic because I'd been told that there had been a call to the area social services that I was with. And I was getting a little bit panicky because I knew that they could pull me over just by my reg number. So I went to my auntie's. It was school holidays again. It was the last week, and Liam had actually gone down to a training thing with a guy called Greg Zecker. Now, if you know, like Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, and all that sort of thing, they're all from that world. And because I was involved with the National Achievers Congress, Liam was involved in the youth program of the National Achievers Congress. So he was on a week's course called Knowledge to Action. And because he was away, I decided to just go and visit my auntie rather than just paying for hotels and things. We just went to stay with my auntie for a week. And I was starting to get my mum pecking in my head. At the time, I didn't realise that my mum was telling social services that I was living in a car. Now, I can actually prove I have every single receipt, every single hotel card, every single thing that proves that actually we were literally residing in hotels. Not ideal, but at the end of the day, they can't actually stop this lifestyle. It's pretty much how actors and celebrities live on a daily basis. Now, my auntie went to the gym, and her friend had told her about this place called Save the Family. Now, when we were still in our property, every time the telly was on, an advert kept coming on going, come to Wales, come to Wales. And there's me, I'm trying to think. I've got 2 children that are just literally coming out of education, and I've got 2 children that are going into education. And I'm wanting to leave Leyland because of the issues going on with Aaron and Faith's dad. And I wanted to make a new, fresh start. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is cool. I'd quite happily go to Leyland. And if any of my friends here who are watching who know what was going on prior, I was like, right, this is it, I'm going off, I'm building this career. I had this image of this home that I wanted to live in. I wanted to have an au pair. I wanted to be able to educate my children from home. And when my auntie took me to see Save the Family, I was in heaven. I was in absolute heaven. You know, it was out in the middle of nowhere. You had this big drive that you had to go up to get to it. It was acres and acres of land. It had a youth centre on site. It had children provisions on site. It was little cottages that you lived in. And I literally sat down with the staff at Save the Family and I explained my situation. I said, look, this is where I am and this is what I'm trying to get to. But in order to be able to purchase a property or private rent, I need 2 years self-employment books. I was still classed as self-employed. I was still working as well as having the children. Even while I was moving around and stuff, I was still working. I was still building. I was building my social media. I was getting things up, and I knew exactly what I was building up to. Because at the end of the day, when I didn't know how to get out of the benefit system, and in the papers it said that I needed to earn 60,000 to clear the system because I had all the disability supports, I was on Motability and all this sort of stuff. So I didn't know how to do this, so of course I went to people that I knew made more than 60,000, which was Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, Tony Robbins, Donald Trump, all of the people who were the heads of big business seminars and things like that. So I was attending seminars and workshops and stuff with these as being the main speakers, and I'd actually got myself to a point where I would then become crew for them, and then I'd worked as a hostess, and then I was now building up to become one of the trainers for Success Resources and for Anthony Robbins. And I'm what's classed as a non-directive coach. I'm an trained interventionist and a natural interventionist. So, you know, I was preparing this big program that I was presenting to government called Step Up Britain, Challenge Britain, as you know. I've got it up there if you want to see what it started as. That was one of the first ever pieces of paper that I wrote with to start building the business plan for Step Up Britain. And I was literally in negotiations to get this installed into as a government programme to be able to have it rolled out pretty much all the way around the UK. So Save the Family is basically, as I was saying at the beginning of the video, it was a place that was set up by Edna Speed, and she was basically using it as a stopgap place for people who were either leaving domestic violence or homeless or having issues and stuff like that. So I was really positive about it. In fact, I can remember the post that I put onto social media going, wow, you know, talk about a manifestation. This is amazing. This is beautiful. You know, I've got a 3-bedroom cottage in the middle of a farm. I can see lambs. I've got a park outside my front door. You know, we've got all this farmlands around us. We had a youth centre on board. I'd arranged with Save the Family for Liam to maintain his education because we were always thinking of either moving forward or going back, and I didn't want to close the doors or break bridges on anything. So I'd sort of said for Liam to be able to maintain his education. Daniel was pretty much coming up every weekend, and Aaron and Faith, that I wanted to get them into their education, but ultimately my intentions of leaving Save the Family was to leave with my debts sort of in some debt management. I've even got the piece of paper that I actually wrote the date on and went, this is from the black to the red. You know, I was organised, I was on it, I knew where I was going, what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, what a fucking crock of shit, I got to learn just how hard this system is, because this system is not enabling and empowering people to be who they are and what they want to be. This system is disabling people, putting them into social housing and onto benefits. Well, that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be self-reliant. I wanted to support my family. I wanted to be able to thrive with my family. I didn't want to be living on benefits in social housing, scrimping around every day and having to constantly deny myself or my children the things that we needed or wanted because we just couldn't afford it. And I didn't want to be living where people can tell me how many days a boyfriend can come and stay, or you know, if I managed to sell this, how much money. I didn't want to have these restraints on me, and I didn't want to have to constantly feel that I had to focus on what I couldn't do. I wanted to focus on what I could do and have people help me by bridging me with the gaps of where my weaknesses and challenges were from. So anyway, on the 28th of October, which is today, 6 years ago, I signed a 2-year contract with Save the Family to be able to live there to up to 2 years. 2 years was the maximum that I could live at Save the Family. And within that time, they help with social housing, they help with that situation. Now, what they basically do at Save the Family is they leave you to your own devices for the first 2 weeks. And then you have a support worker. Now, I was quite itchy-feeted because I wanted to get on. You know, I'm no disrespect to the sort of people that usually live there. But 1, I had a car. 2, I'm very resourceful. 3, I'm not problem orientated. I've always been about solutions. I had my identification. I had my bank account. The majority of people that move in to Save the Family, don't have the tools, don't have passports, don't have driving licenses, don't have birth certificates. They might have a birth certificate for social housing, but the majority don't have passports. And the majority of them don't have education or the understanding to be able to make decisions themselves. They are 100% codependent on the support workers working with them, where actually I'm more qualified than the support workers. So, and as it was, my support worker was on maternity leave. Now, my heaven on earth started to turn into a hell. And the park was closed. The football pitch was shut down. The youth centre you couldn't use. The gates were closed to all of the facilities that you were able to use. The health and safety wasn't in place for people to be able to do anything. And all they were focused on, because obviously it was 28th of October, all they were focused on was this Christmas production that they were putting together, where they were inviting along. And this is where I will prove Aaron and Faith were kidnapped. Aaron and Faith were fucking kidnapped for Christmas presents. And I will prove that Save the Family for 30 years have been burying babies that have died in the fields and have been taking children off vulnerable families for fucking 30 years and have been getting away with it until they did it to the wrong mum. And when they did it to the wrong mum, their facilities got closed down. And I'm going to bring all this stuff forward, and I'm going to show how Save the Family and Connors Quay Social Services have been kidnapping and trafficking children for fucking years. And they have been trafficking children into paedophile circles, and I'm going to prove it. And when my book comes out with all of my evidence, let me just give you a little peek, yeah, for people who don't follow me and don't know. I'll just give you a little peek. Now, I do have copies and it's uploaded. If you have a look in this little cupboard, and it goes down there, and down on the floor, that's my bit of my art cupboard in that side though. But this is basically, and then there's files and files and files. There's files and files and files down there. And I'm going to prove how they kidnapped Aaron and Faith. And I'm just going to finish this video, and then I'm going to get ready for part 2, which is going to be on the 13th of December when Aaron and Faith were taken. And then obviously I'm going to build up to how they were placed for forced adoption. But now, while I was living in this place, I was on a second floor, so you had to go up some stairs, and the washing facilities were across the hallway. Now, I've actually done a video which was on my Bambuser. I think my Bambuser account has been closed down though, so I haven't got the videos, but I've actually been up to Save the Family and I've shown you around and done a proper video, even though they did get the police on me while I was doing it. I interviewed them too. So literally it was getting to the point. Aaron and Faith were beautiful, by the way. They were such good kids. Liam and Daniel were such good kids. And, all it was just their health and safety that I had to deal with. I didn't need my indicative budget. I didn't need the help as such. But on one particular day, it was coming up to Christmas, and I was getting quite stressed because religiously for years I've always put my Christmas decorations up on the 1st of December. We go out and we go and do all the Christmas stuff on the 1st of December, and then on that evening we start all of the little Christmas traditions, and then we build right up until Christmas. I'm not a pagan, so I don't get into all of the pagan things about it, and no, Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Eve, so I don't get in Christmas Day, so I don't get into all of that either. I just love the whole flickery clickily lights and all the nice little things, and winter, and I love it. And Save the Family was going to be so magical because you know, we were going to have all this snow, we were going to be snowed up into the hills. I'd gone and got all of the kids snow boots and snow clothes, and you know, I was preparing for a lovely snowboarding Christmas. And then one night I heard screams that I will never get out of my head. Screams that echoed across the farm, and every night I used to hear the same screaming, and I didn't quite know what was going on. And I got to learn of a deaf mum who had moved on to Save the Family, and she'd had a child baby taken, literally taken, like ripped straight from the womb. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm asking the staff, where's this mother's translator? You know, where is, and I can part speak sign language, so I was communicating with this mum, and this mum is screaming, crying, and trying to explain to people that her children have been, a baby had been taken. She didn't understand why, nobody was telling her what was going on, and literally she was still in this room where she was meant to have her baby, and she was screaming and screaming and screaming, and nobody was there to help her. I didn't understand what was going on. And then the next day it had happened to somebody else, and I wrote on Facebook, what the fuck is going on? And I'm starting to argue with the members of staff that, you know, none of these facilities are open, that we can't even take our children into the park that is literally outside the front of our door, and they're saying it's because it's the winter and it's got moss on and it's dangerous and there's trees down on the football pitch, so there's nothing they can do. So anyway, I get a community of people together to go and start dealing with it, and then I get a warning that we're not allowed to do this. So I'm pretty much going off site. I'm not spending much time on site. Then I'm getting told off that you can't spend more than 2 days away from site, otherwise they give up your property. But I had to go away for 4 days because I was working for Donald Trump on the 5th to the 7th of October. No, that was the year after or year before. Yeah, no, this was actually, I was going down to London. I was going down to London for another meeting. And yeah, the dates slightly don't match, so I'm just trying to work something out which meeting it was. So basically, I know I've just come back from the Donald Trump one, and I was going down for the Kevin Green one, so I've mixed those up. So yeah, so basically, and then there was something else going on, and I was starting to notice this man on site, and he'd had a child taken as well, and I couldn't quite understand what was going on because I got quite a bad vibe by him. And I do this thing when I coach people where I'd say to them, I'm your doctor, and you come to me and I tell you that I'm so sorry that you've got 24 hours to live. However, you've got insurance policy and it's going to pay out for you to do whatever it is that you want to do. Now, people will automatically tell me what they want to do in that 24 hours, and you can tell a lot by how somebody wants to spend their last 24 hours. At no time did his child or his family come into this, and it was quite sexual. And I started to have concerns about this man, and obviously I've got a little daughter who was with me, and there was quite a lot of children on site as well. And I started asking questions and asking staff, why has he had his child taken? And obviously there's disclosure issues and they can't tell you. And I said, is there sexual issues around it? Is there any child abuse around it? And I was being told that they couldn't discuss it. I said, I'm assuming that if there is any allegations of any child abuse, that he wouldn't be allowed to be living on site. So they're telling me that it was okay, it wasn't, it was down to hygiene, blah, blah, blah. But something's still not ringing right with this particular man. So anyway, I'm starting to talk to the members of staff at Save the Family, and we're still October, we haven't even got to, you know, sort of December time, we're still getting in there. And they also control the heating at Save the Family. And I was finding that at night time, about 1-2 o'clock, that the temperature was dropping so low that it was getting really cold in the house, that Faith was then wetting the beds because she was coming out of night nappies as well. You know, such a bad mum that a 2 and a 3-year-old were already day and night dry. And she was getting into bed with me, and then she was wetting the bed, and then I was having to strip both of the beds, and then I was having to take the laundry downstairs, across into the yard and over to the washing facilities, where when you've got to walk with 2 young children down sets of stairs, and you couldn't leave them up in the room, that would just be ridiculous. And I'm also starting to get used to having to be in this camera city where I've got fucking security cameras everywhere, and I didn't realise how challenging that was. And then I was getting over to the washroom, and I was either finding that people were taking your washing out and putting it on, dumping it on the side, or the floor was wet. And on this particular day, which was the 5th of December, I went over to the wash facilities, and some idiot had taken all the washing off, put it all over the top, got water all over the floor, and I slipped. And the moment I slipped, I triggered my lower back again. So I'm starting to get a bit panicky because I'm literally isolated. My auntie was living down the road, but you had to have 24 hours notice before you could come on site if you didn't live there. And this meant that if there was any emergency, I was so vulnerable to social services, and there was no way I was allowing for my children to go into foster care. In fact, I was so certain that my children weren't going to foster care. I even actually wrote down my intentions was to keep my children out of foster care, and you know, all these things that I didn't want in my life. And I put so much energy into what I didn't want, which is what I'm trying to teach people not to do. And I ended up doing what it is that you shouldn't be doing. And I put so much energy into keeping my children out of foster care. And then, so literally, I'd just been talking to a support worker, and I'd said, look, I'm going to have to bring my indicative budget in from Lancashire because this is getting dangerous. And they're saying, well, what are you wanting to do? And I'm going, well, I'm going to have to transfer my indicative budget from Lancashire to social to here. So I rang Adult Social Services, and they said, we are so underfunded, it will potentially take you 2 years to get on our books. And I'm like, what? Seriously? Even though I'm transferring an already existing indicative budget that I've worked damn hard to get, and you're telling me that I can't transfer this? And then I'm learning how it works from different councils, that once you come into another council, you've got to start from scratch again. It isn't a case of this is who you are and you just transfer. It's exactly the same in education. Your statements don't get transferred with you. Even if you change schools, you've got to start from scratch again with different people, and it's fucking annoying. It drives me nuts. So I'd spoken to the people on site again, and I'd said, look, all I need you to do is to give my auntie permission to come on site in the event of an emergency to get the kids, and also that if there is an emergency, that Liam can maintain in the property with the 2 babies, and you know, even if it is overnight, because I'd already been cleared for Liam to be able to remain with the kids up to 72 hours. Even though he was 15, he'd already been deemed responsible enough to look after his brother and sister by himself for up to 72 hours. After 24 hours, he had to notify somebody else that he was with the children, but he had been completely cleared by police and social services to be with Aaron and Faith for up to 24 hours in the event of an emergency with me. He'd already been checked under every form, and they turned around and said no, that if anything happened to me and Liam was with, in fact, they wouldn't even let me go down to the shop and leave Liam with Aaron and Faith on site. I had to take Aaron and Faith with me everywhere because they couldn't be left with their 15-year-old brother. Fucking ridiculous. And my auntie wasn't allowed on site without 24-hour notice. Now, the funny thing is, 28th of October is Halloween, and I'd moved into Save the Family, which was meant to be a Christian organisation that had actually been taken over by Flintshire County Council. Now, apparently, in 2010, Save the Family had failed every inspection and was deemed of being running under par. And they had been told to sort their shit out. And it looks like they hadn't sorted their shit out. So there's me, who's basically saying, hang on a minute, this is your own policies and proceedings. This is the standard that you're meant to be at, and you're not. So therefore, families like me are suffering because you're not providing the correct facility. I even got Barclays to come on to do self-employment with the families, for fuck's sake. And then I got notice that I couldn't work from the flat. They wanted me to go back onto bog standard basic income support because these people were charging up to £1,500 a week for my family. Plus the fact that they were charging us for the washing facilities, they were charging us for meetings on electric, they were charging us for heating that we didn't even have. But come on, £1,500 a week per, and this wasn't even per family, this was pretty much per person, per child. I have all of it. I have got all of it. I have got every single piece of evidence. So basically, all Save the Family were focused on was building this Christmas panto and this Christmas fundraiser, where they basically were bringing all of the millionaires along and talking about, oh, woe are the children who live at Save the Family, so neglected, in poverty, and how they wanted to take all these money from all these big wigs and everything like that. So anyway, I complained to Save the Family again that I thought it was absolutely fucking ridiculous that families were literally sitting in their cottages, stoned out their freaking head smoking weed, and these people knew it was going on, and basically they were leaving them. They made no involvement of the families in this Christmas matter. None of the kids were involved in it. They'd got colleges in to do it, and they'd brought a load of people from another organisation in to be the families for this Save the Family thing. And I didn't agree with this. And I said that actually the families should be involved in this. And, you know, we should be having proper Christmas stuff. And they should be, you know, I was struggling to get my Christmas stuff out of my storage unit and get back to Leyland, where my storage unit was. And I was only hiring a car as and when I needed it by this time, rather than having a car hire all the time. In fact, actually, all this time I actually had a car hire because I've just been sorting all Christmas stuff out. And I sort of felt that there was much more that they could be doing for these families. So in the end, on the 5th of December, when I slipped in the washing, I spoke to Kath Daly, who was one of the support workers there, and I said, look, this is getting ridiculous because I'm going to end up hurting one of my kids. You know, I don't want to pick them up wrong. You know, I'm struggling with my back because obviously I'm sleeping with discs in my back. I had one of these old 1970s sofas in the property, you know, where the headboard comes forward, and I was starting to really cause problems in my neck. And I refused to allow their failings to put my physical body in danger and my children in danger. So I said, look, I've got no choice. I have got to get my indicative budget in here. And they were refusing to make the adjustments that I was asking for. So I had no choice. Wow. Oh, lo and behold, don't ever say to a social worker that you're going to end up hurting your kids. Wow, was that taken out of content. So anyway, the CAF Daily did not make a normal referral because apparently in Wales they have no budget whatsoever in their early interventions team. No, she rang child protection, didn't she? Straight through to child protection. But anyway, this lovely social worker come out to see me, right? She literally come out within an hour. And I sat down and I spoke to her and I explained everything to her. And she said to me, her exact words were, "You are brave." I said, "What do you mean I'm brave?" She said, "I'm a social worker, but I wouldn't turn to our system right now." I said, "What?" And also, one of the mums had made a comment to me as well. She said, "Why are you asking for a referral to social services?" She said, "They take your kids." I said, "Oh, don't be so fucking stupid. Social services don't take kids. You've got to be like, you know, a fucking raging fucking," and I shouldn't say crack smackhead, but I'm going to say it anyway. But you've got to be like an on the street smack crackhead, or you've got to have like been a paedophile or beating your kids and with no chance of change, or like you got to be like some serious, really bad person, potentially even in prison, to have your kids taken. You know, I believed it was like nearly impossible to remove a child, and like, you know, I've already got Liam. Daniel is at school. He's just coming up to his GCSEs. You know, Daniel was, you know, he was in his athletics. He'd been with his football team since he was 8 years old. You know, he was a top goalkeeper. In fact, he was a pro goalkeeper. You know, he was competing in athletics in the state, and you know, he was top of his class. He'd never had a day off school. In fact, he ended up leaving school with being the deputy head boy. He ended up with a certificate for 100% attendance. You know, Liam at the time obviously was doing his music production and art in college. Aaron and Faith were both articulate. In fact, both could speak pidgin in 5 different languages because I'd been teaching them Italian, French, Spanish, German, and sort of Cantonese as well as English. And, you know, both of them could write their own names. Both of them would dry during the day and night. Both of them could tie their own shoelaces. They're only 2 and 3. Really great kids. In fact, even when the social worker was there, you know, Aaron got up and made some toast and you know, went and sat down and put a film on. And the only challenge that I was having was that Faith had and Aaron had wanted to go out to the park, and they couldn't understand why they couldn't use the park that was literally outside their door. And I'm trying to explain to them that it needs to be cleaned and stuff, and they're not understanding why we can't go and do that. And Faith has never ever had a temper tantrum ever, and all of a sudden she just threw herself down on the floor, but she was right next to the door. So I picked her up and I put her on the sofa, and I told her, "Come on," you know, we had a cuddle and everything. But I said the word pinned her to the sofa, right? And it literally was. I picked her up and I put her on the sofa, and I said to her, "Look, you can carry on and you can go to your bedroom, or you can sit here and, you know, we can have a cuddle." She chose to have a cuddle with me and everything was okay. But when I did that, I couldn't pick her up properly because I'd injured my back again. And then, because I'm going to bring this to an end in a minute, and the reason I'm going to bring this to an end is that this particular video has talked about what led me to ending up at Save the Family, and now it's gone from today, which is the 28th of October, and I'm now leading up to the 13th of December, and I'm going to do another video on the 13th of December, which then talks about from what I'm going to end here on to the whole court proceedings that I went to, and then the orders that were granted, and then I'm going to then do a video next July that it wraps up all of this campaigning and everything that is led to, and then I'm bringing my book out. So and also it helps me, these videos help me. So basically I've had this initial social worker come out, and she agreed that my indicative budget should be transferred over. She agreed that my auntie should be allowed on site. She agreed that Liam should be allowed to maintain with the children if I ended up in A&E. She understood that I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She understood that I was an Aspie. She understood that my words is not always necessarily what I'm saying. You know, she really got it, and she was great. And she said, right, she said, I'm going to go back to the office and I'm going to speak to adult social services, and we're going to get this sorted, and we're going to speak to Lancashire social services and get this done. So anyway, the 13th of December is my dad's birthday, and I've been talking to Kath again, and a lot of the staff are starting to question me, because I'm this mother who's got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, who's struggling, but I'm also this mother that trains. So I do my core stability. You probably, as I'm walking around, see that there's a big core ball bouncing around somewhere, because I sit on a core ball, and you know, and I was getting up every day, and I was also asking to be able to use the youth centre to be able to do my training rather than, you know, banging down with somebody living down below me. So anyway, as far as I was concerned, we were basically getting everything in place. And if I ended up in A&E, which is what I was worried about happening, because once my discs go to a point that I can't do it myself, no chiropractor will touch me without an MRI. So you have to go into A&E in order to have the MRI, in order to locate where the discs are, in order for me to then bring a chiropractor, for the chiropractor to have the MRI scans, because otherwise I've got to pay privately for the MRI scans, in order for him to be able to relocate. So, and not many people will touch somebody with EDS for a relocation, by the way. I still learning how to put discs in myself. I can't get my ulnar bone in my wrist in myself. Hospital, I have to do that. I can get my jaw back in myself, and I can get my shoulder back in myself, and I can sort of get my knees back in by myself and strap them up. But when it comes to my discs and my neck, because I have a potential Chiari malformation as well, I can't do them by myself. So anyway, I've basically been telling people that my body is getting to this particular point, and I'm starting to struggle to be able to pick the kids up when they're kicking off about not being able to use the facilities, and they're not understanding that they can't use the facilities. This is out of character behaviour for my children. Totally out of character. You know, they're in a flat with all this lovely land, with the football pitches and the parks, and they can't use it. So every time we're coming in from the car, they want to go to the park and they can't. And you all know what a child's like when they can't do something. And Aaron was wanting the Xbox. And so anyway, I got up on the 13th of December, and I was speaking to Kath, and I was like, it's my dad's birthday. I sort of want to ring him. I don't know how I feel about it. I haven't spoken to my dad since when I just fell homeless, and I'd literally just rang my dad to see if I could sort of come and see him and come and stay down, and he didn't ring me back, and I was a little bit miffed with my dad, and me and my dad have this on and off relationship. So I was quite hurt, and I didn't know whether to ring him, and I was talking to Kath, and you know, I just said to her that, come on, this situation is getting really stressful. Not me and the kids. I've never had an issue with my kids. The circumstances that we were in. You know, we've got a potential fucking paedophile roaming around our kids. We've got facilities that don't work, incompetent fucking staff, and everybody is just focused on this performance so they can get lots of money out of these multimillionaires. And literally a couple of days prior to this, they'd had this performance, and Aaron and Faith were in the room, and this couple kept coming up to my kids, right?
And Aaron and Faith kept standing behind me. And every time this couple looked at my kids, Aaron and Faith kept standing behind me. In fact, Aaron and Faith started to refuse to get involved with anything. And all they kept doing was standing behind me. So we decided to literally go back to the flat. Didn't fuck knows what was going on, but something didn't feel right. In fact, I'd actually started to think about getting off site, and actually that I was feeling that this was not a good situation to be in. And in fact, actually, on the 12th of December, Sid Higgerty, and I've been in contact with Sid Higgerty since 2010 when we were involved in Lawful Rebellion. And he had posted up, funny enough, it was the petition by Sabine McNeil for forced adoption. And I'm still like, I'm not getting my head around this forced adoption bullshit. Like, seriously, come on. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a congruence about it because I'm in this bit of polarity where I'm starting to see stuff that just doesn't make sense. But I'm assuming that there's got to be more in their paperwork than they're telling me, because social services don't just take kids. And then on the morning of the 13th of December, I got a phone call from social services to say that the assessor was coming out to see me. I was fucking relieved. Absolutely relieved. I'm like, yes, they're doing this so fast. I have never known social services to move this fast. Like, literally on the 5th of December to the 13th, that's like really fast. That's too slow for me, but for social, that's really fast. What I didn't know is they were coming in under child protection, and they were coming in under section 47s, and I didn't know any of this stuff. And I didn't even understand. I didn't even get my paperwork until all of this was after, to even learn what was going on. So anyway, this lady called Cheryl Osborne came to see me and sat down at my table, and she had a conversation with me. And in fact, I got on really well with her, because it turned out that the UPW in May 2012 and the National Achievers Congress, which was October 2012, where I was crew, Cheryl Osborne is actually a guest. So she was actually attending the UPW, which is Unleash the Power Within, and the National Achievers Congress as a guest. So she was basically the people that we were training. And yeah, so she was at these events. So we did what's called the Dickens process. And the Dickens process is, if you think of Christmas Dickens, where you get to see your future self, your present self, and your past self. So she said to me, so if we don't end up coming in to help, what's going to happen? I said, well, I'm just going to end up smashing the Xbox or killing the kids. Stupid. However, she thought it was funny as well, to the point that I actually made another brew after this. On that note, I'm going to put the kettle on because I'm about to finish in a minute and leave you guys to it. And no, I'm not, because I've got the plug in it. So we had this conversation, and it was wicked, because I was able to talk to her about things that majority of people think I'm grandeur about. So if I sat down with any normal social worker and said, even talking to you guys, and said that basically I crew events with Donald Trump, even now with him being Prime Minister, people would go, oh my goodness, that woman's got serious mental health, and like, you know, she's absolute crazy. But because she was at the events, she knew this to be true. So she didn't question me. And because all my paperwork was on the table at the time, and my passes and all of these things, she didn't question me. And also, you'll know that I'll just show you quickly. I haven't finished it, but it's up here. But when I was living at Save the Family, I just started doing this then. So let me just turn my hallway light on. So down here, I've got like, here's all the names I've been known for by the way. So then we've got 1998, 1999. Hey, look, there's me. And then this, I haven't finished it, by the way. So this, by the way, is the age that the social worker called me attractive in a street corner kind of way. So that's me at 15. That's me with my little sister. So look, you know,
I might have had shit going on. There's me. And then obviously it goes all the way around. And then all the way down here. And I got a whole box of photographs because this is all to do with my book. But while I was at Save the Family, I had this in my bedroom. Because I was literally designing a thing called trauma therapy, and getting to people's individual pockets of trauma and going through their timeline. And I designed this whole timeline therapy to introduce to people like me, I suppose, or you, to help people identify where trauma has happened and go back to that trauma and be able to deal with that trauma and dig the gangrene out, rather than what these guys do and give you medication and stick plasters on it. That's just like fucking ridiculous, because at some point you're going to have to amputate it. So anyway, literally for about 2 hours, I had a conversation with Cheryl Osborne. And, you know, I was feeling really confident. And by the end of this meeting, we had an agreement that I was going to take Christmas leave, and I was going to step back from work, and I was going to restart for January, which I do anyway. I tend to sort of finish on around the 13th, 14th of December anyway, and then I focus on Christmas with my children, blah 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 blah. So they'd agreed that they were going to go back to the office and speak to Lancashire Social Services, get all my stuff over and deal with it from there. Now, what I didn't know is they hadn't contacted adult social services, they had contacted children's social services. And in 2009, I'd had a Marek meeting. Now, they never did anything for it because they didn't have the support for me. In fact, I moved myself, as I said previously on the video, which is why things that seem insignificant become significant now. So it was the church that put up my bond for me to move, and I didn't get the help that I potentially could have got from social services when I left the children's dad. So yeah, anyway, so what I didn't know, and I'm going to talk about this on the 13th of December, what I didn't know is they'd spoken to children's social services, and what I didn't know is when Cheryl Osborne had come out, they had already authorised my children on Children in Need. Now, there's stuff that I know now that I didn't know before, because I tracked down the foster carers and I asked the foster carers, when were you told my children were coming? They were put on standby way before I had even called social services. Now, when Cheryl left, the health visitor had tried to come, and I'd said, well, hang on, you know, you have to make an appointment. I've got all this stuff on. I was trying to get to a meeting for 1:30 over in the office of Save the Family on all of the complaints that I'd issued, and we had a meeting on bringing that together. Well, Aaron has just literally had to deal with a fucking social worker in the house, right? And he's wanting to play on the Xbox, and he's so cute, right? And this is what led to my children being removed. This is what led to us having to go to the hospital. And all I told Aaron to do was he needed to get shoes on, and we were in his coat, and we were going to go across and deal with this thing. And he's going, Xbox, Xbox. And I'm going, Aaron, shoes. And literally, bless his cotton socks, I didn't used to be able to talk to this without bawling into fucking tears, but 6 years later it gets easier. He'd literally gone and ran and jumped into Liam's bed. And I can probably, if I got something around, I'll get a pillow and do it, right? I'm just going to put his there so you can actually see this properly, right? And I use a pillow. Oh, I just dropped you. Sorry, guys. I use a pillow so you can see it properly, right? And he literally got into Liam's bed, pulled the duvet up, and he's going, Xbox. And I'm going, no. He's going, Xbox. And I'm going, no. So anyway, what I did was, because this is really important, you've got to remember what it is that I did. You've got a 3-year-old boy with the most cutest smile on his face, laughing his head off, pulling the duvet up to his neck. Now you've got to remember, my children have EDS as well, okay? So I'm going, come on, Aaron, get your shoes on. And he's going, Xbox, Xbox. And I'm going, no, when Liam gets home from college, you can play on the Xbox with Liam. But we're going out now and you need to get your shoes on. So anyway, I put both of my hands behind Aaron's head like this. So on both sides, literally like that. And I literally, because he's got his arms under and all of this, and also with EDS kids, you don't pull them up their arms. So literally, I've levered his head up like that, twisted him around, and he's gone boomp down onto the floor, put his feet out, and I've gone right leg, left leg, shoes on, come on, coats on, scruffed his head, hat on. Right, come on, let's go over. And both of Aaron and Faith is walking around going, Aaron's not getting his shoes on. Come on, Aaron, get your shoes on. So literally we walk over, right? And the children go into the little children's bit. We're all going into the meeting. And I end up just literally just bawling out in absolute relief. Relief that now I don't have to be scared of the potential of my children going into foster care if I end up in A&E. That the social worker agreed that it was common sense for Liam to maintain. I'd had all my paperwork with me as well. You know, so she'd agreed that it was common sense for Liam to be able to remain at the property if an ambulance turned up, and she was going to tell Save the Family that that's what was going to happen. My auntie was allowed on site, and they were going to literally have a meeting in January after Christmas that literally put my plan in place for me and the family to be able to move forward. And I was really relieved, and it was like so much weight, because you've got to remember from August I've literally been homeless, living out and travelling and stuff with my kids, trying to work as a single mother, to finally getting to Save the Family, to having all of these issues, to bang, finally everything's going to be okay. And I just said to the support worker, that like, I'm so glad that this is being sorted, because I've just had this situation with Aaron where I've just like, you know, I'm struggling to pick him up because obviously on my back. And if you can imagine a child laying on a bed and you've got slipped discs and you're trying to lean over, and I really struggled, and I didn't quite have him properly when he sort of bumped onto the floor. And you know, I'd explained all of this, and then I've taken Aaron's hat off, scruffed his hair down, you know, taken his bits off and got him ready, and then I've gone and sat in the meeting. So anyway, this meeting, I've talked about all of the problems and all of the issues, and they're like, right, okie dokie, let's address them. Well, I didn't realise in the background the cunts are on the phone, aren't they? Yeah. So even though I've met with one social worker, the bastards are on the phone to another social worker, now putting a second referral in against me, that I have just picked my son up by the head and dropped him on the floor. That's what they said. Yeah, that I just picked my son up by his head and dropped him on the floor, right? So anyway, I go to this meeting, I'm relieved, I'm thinking everything's okay. I'm literally like telling the kids, come on, we're going off down to this lovely cafe that we used to go to. Amazing place. It's a 1960s like silver cabin where we go for ice cream and waffles, and Daniel is meant to be coming up for the weekend, and we're literally preparing for going off, taking the kids snowboarding, and I get to write and do some bits and stuff like that, and I was in a really good place. And then I got a phone call from the social worker Cheryl Osborne, and this is all on the 13th of December, and she said to me, we've just had a phone call from Save the Family that you've just picked Aaron up by his head and thrown him to the floor. And I went, what? You fucking kidding me? She said, yeah, we've just had a phone call from Save the Family and they've just said that you've just picked Aaron up by his head and thrown him to the floor. I'm like, you are damn kidding me. That is not what was happening, and that was not what was said. And she said, well, anyway, it's come through as that, and I'm going to have to either, you know, you're either going to have to agree to take Aaron up to the hospital, or we're going to bring the police to do it for you. And I'm like, what? Come on, seriously, I've only just got a Christmas tree. We're putting the Christmas tree up tonight. It was about 6:45 by this time, right? And this Cheryl Osborne is obviously pissed off because she's now doing overtime. She was meant to obviously been leaving, and now she's still got to stay at work. She's on a long day. And I'm like, I'm on the phone to her going, but Cheryl, that's not what's happened. And she's going, yeah, but I can't, that's what's come through. And this phone call had gone from the person that I was speaking to in the office at Save the Family, who's the family worker. She's then gone and spoken to her line manager. Her line manager's then gone and spoken to their line manager. That line manager has then made a phone call through to the main department of social services, that's then had a conversation with the next person, who's written a post-it note, who's then put a call through to somebody else, who's then rang up Cheryl and spoken to Cheryl. And in this time, because I did a SARS, yeah, you want to see how many times this statement has changed. So all of a sudden, Cheryl says to me, we need to take the kids to the hospital. And I'm going, well, I don't see why I need to take the kids to the hospital. It's now getting late at night. But she's saying, well, we're going to come with the police and that's it. Wow, fucking hell. About 40 minutes later, I've got 2 police officers and 2 social workers in my flat telling me that I've just picked my son up by the hair in rage and thrown him around the room. I'm stood there going, what? Hang on a minute. That is not what the social workers just said to me. And now I've got a police officer telling me something very different. So anyway, I explained, but obviously I'm starting to panic. I explained to them, I agree to go to the hospital. Liam is not back from college. He's just literally literally just getting in from college. And I'm saying, look, it's all right. I've got to take the kids down to the hospital. He's saying, well, I'll come with you. I'm going, no, Liam, you've got your youth thing tonight. You go to your youth thing. I wish I'd taken Liam with me. I really do. If I'd taken Liam with me, we might have had a different situation. But I went to the hospital. I had to go in the police car with the police. Aaron and Faith were with me. We drove to Mellor Hospital or something in Wrexham. Went to the children's ward, had this doctor come out, spoke to the doctor. Now the problem is the doctor takes, when they say you say, it's not what you say, it's what everything has been said. And the way they write these statements is really dangerous. Because when I said, look, okay, I'm frustrated with the situation I'm in. I'm not frustrated with my kids. I'm frustrated with Save the Family. I'm frustrated with with the facilities, not my children or me. Yeah. So anyway, Aaron didn't want to go through the assessment that they were asking him to do. Unnecessary fucking assessments, the bastards. And he didn't want to have it done because they don't just check for bruises, they check their penis, they check their anus, they check fucking everything. And Aaron was not happy about this. In fact, he refused to get undressed. So listen to what I say very carefully right now, because this is important and this is the grounds that they got to remove my children. So anyway, I'm going, Aaron, where's the bruises? Oh, come on. And I'm lifting his arms out and I'm lifting his top up over his head and I'm getting him undressed and I'm trying to make this as easy for him as possible because he's a 3-year-old boy who's got 2 police officers stood one side, social workers stood the other side, the doctor stood the other side, medical students stood the other side, and he feels violated. In fact, he probably feels like the same way a rape person would, because he's being asked to take his clothes off, have a stranger medically assess him, and I haven't been able to prepare him for any hospital things, because usually I prepare my son for things like, you know, if they're having joints checked. And also my son knows our doctors, so it's different. So anyway, I'm going and I'm getting him back close, and anyway, then I scruff him on the head and I go, no bruises, not yet. No bruises, not yet. It means a 3-year-old, and actually he did have some bruises. He had little things on his shins, as little kids do. You know, a couple of little sort of, you know, kids have like a couple of marks up their knees, don't they, and stuff like that. You know, so he was fine, everything was good. He was dressed, got his shoes back on. Faith was sort of stood being all girly like she is, watching everything that's going on. And then I'm thinking, we're going. That's it, everything's over, everything's checked over, we're off. So then I'm told that they need to speak to me in a room. And Aaron and Faith, I'm told to leave in the room with the doctor, and the social worker is going to remain while the police officer and the social worker want to speak to me in another room. So anyway, I go into the room with them, and I'm literally in the size of my kitchen now. I'm stood this side. I've got two police officers stood. I've got one police officer in front of me that side, one police officer that side. One social worker is with my kids, and another social worker stood to me. But I've got one police officer in between me and the door. So anyway, the police officer says to me, this must be a very stressful situation, Kelly. I said, well, Save the Family is a stressful situation, but we're not. And he said, well, it would be maybe good if you agreed to hand the children over for respite. I said, no, if I wanted respite, we'd go on holiday. And he's saying, well, you know, I'm saying that I think you should hand the children over for respite. If anyone asks you to sign or hand your children over, no. No, 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 no. Never do what I did. I made a fucking massive mistake. Don't ever do what I did. So anyway, the police officer has said to me that you need to hand the children over. Now, I already had a family solicitor because obviously I'd been through court with Stephen. And I said, look, I'd like to get some advice on what's going on right now. He refused to allow me to have my advice, which actually is wrong. So anyway, this police officer said to me, if you do not and he was aggressive, if you do not hand your children over, I'm going to take them and you won't even say bye. You say one word, mutter, say anything, do anything, make any scenes. I'm going to take them kids and you don't get to say bye. That was from the police officer, right? I'm a mother on my own, right? And I've got an aggressive police officer in front of me telling me that if I do not hand my children over, he is going to take them. I didn't know anything about police orders, child protection orders. I didn't know anything about this at the particular point. I didn't even know he could take my children. I didn't even know what grounds he had to take for my children. But he was giving me a choice between I hand my children over or he takes them and I don't get to say bye. And I'll never see them again, were his words. So I didn't agree to any of it, right? And he said, look, let's just calm this situation down. The kids are just going to go and stay with foster carer tonight. Let's get all this stuff sorted. Let's get everything in place and the kids will be home tomorrow. So I reluctantly pushed past, I pushed past the police officer and I said, if anybody is touching my kids, it's me. So I went to my kids and we all walked out of the hospital, and I then literally darted into the shop that was at the side and I brought my kids two dogs. And we went to a Volvo, which was the car that the other social worker, so not Cheryl Osborne, but the other one, and her name stays blank in my mind for some reason. I do know it is on paperwork. And I don't really feel that she was responsible in any of this, so it's probably why I don't necessarily name her. But anyway, I put the kids in the car seats. I gave them the dogs. I told them that I loved them, that they were going to stay with some really nice people, and that Mummy would see them tomorrow. I got back. The police dropped me off. And I got back from Save the Family to Save the Family. And I went through my front door. And I literally leant against the wall and just dropped. And I literally just fell to the floor. And that scream that I'd heard from another mum, I understood what that scream was about. Because I became the mother that started screaming at night. And I just dropped to the floor and cried, and Liam come running through going, Mum, where's the kids? And I'm going, I don't know, but it's okay, they're coming home tomorrow. And everything in me just completely collapsed. And I just felt my world just completely fall apart. At literally 9 o'clock in the morning, I was on the phone to social services. They wouldn't answer the phone to me. I was on the phone to the police. They wouldn't speak to me. I went over to save the family. Nobody would tell me anything. Liam actually managed to speak to the police officer as I was dropped off. And the police officer told him it's all right, you know, your brother and sister are coming back tomorrow. It is just literally, let's just get some stuff in place, get this situation sorted, and you know, the kids will be home, you know, in the morning. All morning I was on the phone to everybody. Where's my kids? When are my kids coming back? At 12 o'clock I got a phone call to get to Wrexham Court, Mould Court, sorry, for 1 o'clock. And I walked into a courtroom with 3 justices of peace. No legal team, because I'd had literally an hour to get to court. And in front of me read a document, and on this document it said, the mother was sectioned under the Mental Health Act when Aaron was 7 months old and both the children went to live with their paternal grandparents. I'll explain in the next video, part 2, on how I can prove how that is wrong, which is why I've told you that when Liam was 7 months old, I had gone to A&E where I was told I had a conversion disorder, which is why pieces of my past stories start to make sense. They also said that I had threatened to harm my children, that I had made, listen to this, that mother had made a threat to bruise her son, and that I had picked up my son by his hair and thrown him to the floor. And I read this and I said, this is not true. This is taken out of content and this is wrong. And do you know what? Them justice of peace were lovely, 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 lovely. And this woman, she said, you need to get some legal help. Now, I wish I hadn't, right? I really wish I hadn't. And all this is for the next video. But I literally, she said, right, I'm on the phone. And, you know, they adjourned what they were doing. They said, look, we will reconvene at like 3 o'clock. And I literally ran out into the cafe and just went, are there any legal people here? They're taking my kids. What do I do? And there was a barrister sat in the cafe. And I just assumed he was a barrister because he had a pinstripe suit on. As he was a barrister. And I sat down with him and I said, I don't know what to do. This information's wrong. And he ran, right, I'm ringing somebody. And he rang a solicitor. And the solicitor and everybody had turned at the court. Now, I will tell any parent, if your barrister, if your solicitor tells you to neither agree nor disagree, you refuse, you oppose, you oppose, you oppose. Because if you don't oppose, they will use it against you that you did not oppose the threshold document. I didn't oppose the threshold document. I neither agreed nor disagreed for them to reconvene. I argued and I argued that I disagreed with every statement, but my barrister went back in that room and said that currently they don't have the medical evidence available to them at the time that will disprove it, and until they can get this, that they neither agreed nor disagreed. You've got 72 hours if they take your kids. You've got 72 hours. You've got 72 hours to turn it around. If you don't turn it around in the first 72 hours, you are in a 26-week court process. I didn't know this. I didn't understand this. And I will die teaching you all to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes I did. Because my kids are gone and I haven't seen them since.
I didn't know I had 72 hours. I didn't know the process. I didn't understand the process. I didn't know that I was entitled to see my paperwork. I didn't understand the laws that I was under. I didn't know fuck all about fuck all to do with this system. I have never been in this position ever before in my life. I committed no crime. If I had abused my child, if the allegations that they made against me were true, then why am I not in prison? Why have I not been taken to the criminal courts and placed before a jury and committed to prison for a crime? I ended up in a 26-week court process. That on the 13th of December 2018, I am literally going to have all my paperwork out in front of you, and I'm going to show you step by step how Wrexham Police with Stephen Lewis, another police officer who I'm being quite nice to at the moment because again I don't see her as the issue, how Cheryl Osborne, a social worker, and how Carrie Larn, the replacement social worker, and how District Judge Andrew Shaw, who just happened at the time to be the solicitor for Princess Diana's butler, and how Save the Family has been setting families up to have their children taken, and how they make so much money, and how they treated me as a criminal. And I'm going to tell you about 6 police officers at my door making more further allegations. I'm going to tell you about further perjury, misfeasance in public office, malfeasance in public office, non-misfeasance in public office. Learn these words. I'll say those words again because they're really important. Non-misfeasance, misfeasance, and malmisfeasance. Learn them if you are in these court processes. A miscarriage of justice. But ultimately, what they did to Aaron and Faith was state kidnapping. I have never caused any significant harm to my children. How the social worker wrote down that Ehlers-Danlos syndrome was the easiest condition for someone to fake. And how they abused me and my family. How Aaron was having burn marks on his wrist. Faith was telling me that it's okay, the snake doesn't hurt. And how my daughter was telling me, you don't touch the man's penis, do you, mummy? How my daughter was pushing me into the toilets, begging me to take her home. How every time I saw my children at contact, the police would stand behind my son so he couldn't kick off. How many times I went to contact where the police were there. And even on the day that they gave me my judgment, how I turned up to the courts to 2 police officers and 3 security guards, and why I've got draconian gagging orders on me, and why this isn't just happening to me, but this is happening to thousands of families, not just in the UK, but around the world, in the secret family courts, where parents are on a hide into nowhere with false information, misread information, that where people are not even interested in the family, you're just a case number, where people go by paperwork that reads really nasty. In fact, I'm going to read something to you because I got a letter the other day from where is it, just a warning to a few parents out there that it's time that we stood up to this shit. And it really is time that we stood up to this shit because it's ridiculous. Because as you know, I've got 2 other kids, yeah? Aaron and Faith, Liam and Daniel weren't taken from me, by the way. Liam was only 15 at the time. And Liam stood by me the whole time. Was in court with me every day. Never left my side. But I got a letter the other day. I'm just trying to find it because they're cunts how they write things. As you know, I've been through social twice with Elijah and Shiloh, and you might know that Elijah and Shiloh are not immunised
I've had meetings with social that have agreed that my children don't have to be immunised. Can't find this letter, but we got a letter the other day because of Elijah's immunisation that was due at 2. And they wrote a letter to us about how social services will see this as neglect. And also, as you know, Dean was attacked the other day, and it is standard protocol that if the police come into anyone with families, because they're now under MASH, that social automatically come in. Now, we're meant to be moving this week, and we have to move, because I'm in very similar situation to where I was as Save the Family. I may not be in a RAN organisation place, but I am in a FEMA camp, where actually, if I open my curtains, well, hey, we haven't got the police outside. I'm surprised, being it's Halloween night, but there's no police outside. There's usually police outside. I've got Johnny 5, the camera. So as long as I can get everything sold that needs to get sold so I can hire this van on Friday, then hopefully we're moving. And we're going to be in a nice quiet area where we're away from the council, away from all this shitty stuff, and out of this system. And we will be out of the system, no benefits, nothing. I've got an interview for a job on the phone tomorrow at a university to work as a mental health support worker at a university, and for policy change and stuff like that. So, yeah, so today is the 28th of October, and I've just told you how I ended up at Save the Family and what happens next. And on the 13th of December, it will be 6 years since Aaron and Faith were taken from me. And I'm going to do another video on that day. And I'm going to tell and speak, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to have this paperwork out in front of me. And I'm going to show you step by step, false accusation, how they wrote things up. I'm even going to show you how the psychological report reads as if everything is current, that they could actually have sentences for when you were born, they could have sentences from the day you started school, they can have a sentence from your medical note, 22 years of wrongful diagnosis, how your genealogies are structured, how they word things, how it works with legal aid, how the court system structures work, how they paint a very, 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 very different picture of the family that stood before them. And then the video after that, I'm going to talk about the campaigning. And then obviously I'm in between all of this, I'm going to continue keep teaching parents. And as you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've intervened on quite a lot of cases where we've got stay of executions in place for no orders to be able to be granted while we can put the correct provisions around the families. And they can't deny this happening. It's just that parents don't know you can do this. What you've got to remember is I went from being an airy-fairy mum who just saw the world in this lovely bubble, and I believed that social services and everything was there to enable and support families that have got physical conditions, come under the mental health or learning difficulties, to make sure that they go above the threshold and to support families. But actually what is happening is there is no funding anymore in early interventions and support. All of the funding, as we know, is supporting adoption, supporting foster care, but it isn't supporting families. They certainly didn't support my family. And even though I went to save the family, they didn't save my family. They fucking fucked my family over and potentially abused my children in foster care. We have evidence of sexual, physical and emotional abuse to my children in foster care. We also know that Aaron and Faith were originally placed with previous adopters to the ones that they're with. But I think because they met a mother who come out like a roaring lion, these people that were originally involved in this corruption have vacated, because Aaron and Faith were placed with 4 foster carers before they've gone to the people that they're with now. I'm praying and hoping they're with some good people while I do this, and they are being loved and cared for and looked after. And I have had my letter, and guess what my daughter wants to be? She's 8 years old and she wants to be a spy and a detective. because she's looking for her mum. I had the closest bond ever with all 4 of my children. We were a tight-knit community, family, solid family. My children had the most tightest bond with me. They think they've broken that bond. They haven't. They think a piece of paper takes away me being a mother. Are you fucking kidding me? You think an adoption paper stops me being Aaron and Faith's mother? Are you fucking joking? Are you shot in the fucking head? I'm a mother, and I am through and through a mother. Whether my children are with me or whether my children are out there, I am their mother until the day that I cross over into the heaven or potentially go to hell if I end up killing someone. And actually, I wouldn't, because the Lord would even forgive me, because these people do know what they do. They do know what they are doing. And at the end of the day, this isn't about personal responsibility. This is about accountability. This is about lazy ass, incompetent social workers who don't give a shit what they write, how they write it. Most of it is cut and paste. Most of it is copyrighted. And I'm going to prove it on my next video. But you're going to have to wait until the 13th of December. And the reason that you're going to have to wait until the 13th of December, oh shit, now I have just had a message because I haven't paid my phone bill. I owe it £36, and now it's just letting me know that I'm running out of data, which means that my phone is, when I get off here, I'm probably going to have a text that my phone's been cut off. So unless I make money this week, because I've got stuff to sell, but I'm not allowed people to my property in through selling stuff, and I'm not allowed to use the community centre downstairs. So, and obviously my car is, MOT is now out, so I've got a really challenging week this week. If anybody out there wants to help in any way, shape or form, or anybody actually really needs anything that I've got to sell, then please watch my social media, because I have to make money this week, because I am not staying in this place, and I am not going to be in the same situation that I was in 6 years ago, where these cunts end up coming for my kids prior to Christmas. My kids ain't nobody's Christmas present, and my kids are not for adoption. My kids are never going to be in that system, and I'm going to focus on keeping my family moving forward, and I want fuck all to do with this system. I don't want to be on benefits. I don't want to be in social housing. I don't want to be dependent on anybody for anything. I want to be self-sufficient, and I want to support my children, so no fucker can question me for jack shit. And I'm going to make sure that Elijah and Shiloh are educated to a level that they know absolutely everything. So damn if these people ever step to them. My children know what to do when, under any situation. And also I'm going to make sure that, unlike me, that my children are proactive, that whenever anything comes to them, that they don't react in the way that I did, that they can regulate their emotions. So if they ever find themselves in a situation where they need to defend themselves, that they can do it articulately, that they can do it cleverly, they can be smart, and that my children always, they've got a best friend who's a solicitor, a best friend who's a barrister, a best friend who works for the police, a best friend who's a fucking hairdresser. That my children know the art of networking, the power of community, the power of a support system. So never is there a day that my children are ever left vulnerable or alone as I was. Because I've been through this alone. I went through the court system alone. I went through the removal alone. I only had my children with me. And because of the allegations that went before me, everybody turned their fucking backs on me. Just like they do with all of us. And they leave us with draconian gagging orders on us. But I tell you what, I would rather leave this planet with my integrity intact than go down like a fucking coward and let these cunts just have my children. So I am writing the book. I don't have a laptop at the moment, so it is a little bit difficult. I'm in the middle of a bit of a storm going on here with the council. As you know, Dean ended up getting hit with a crowbar and bike seats and a bottle the other day. It's pretty crazy where we are. We're being set up left, right and centre. And people just don't want things to work out between me and Dean and our kids. They want us separated so then they can come in and sweep on me, and it ain't happening. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say today. I can't believe I've spoken for an hour and a half. today is the 28th of October, and today's 6 years since I moved in to Save the Family, where I thought that me and my family were going to come through the other side of a 5-year plan where we would have had our land, and Step Up Britain would have, enabled pretty much every person in the UK and in the EU and around the world, because I have Step Up USA as well. Obviously, Donald Trump went off to be Prime Minister, as he did say in October he was going to do. And there are many people in position. I was meant to run as an MP. That didn't quite happen. And yeah, I suppose you can find me on Kelly Cottam on Facebook. I've got a website called kellycottam.com. I've got .co.uk. I've got to pay for it this week, otherwise I'm going to lose it. In fact, I'm going to lose Dean's websites this week. We've got Forced Adoption Exposed, but unfortunately I've just been fucked over with that and it's just disappeared. So I've got to suss out that. And everything that I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing on my phone. And as you know, I'm going to get off the phone and I'm going to find that my phone's been cut off. And yeah, so basically I've just got to make some money this week. And hopefully on Friday we're going to be moving, and we've got an 8-hour drive to our new destination. Yeah, I am going to show how Aaron and Faith were kidnapped. This isn't about personal responsibility, because I didn't do anything wrong. If I did, then I would be in prison. And if you don't think that this is going on, then just do some research yourself. 90% of all adoptions are forced. Have a look at the statistics of how many parents are actually in prison. There's between 70 and 100,000 children in foster care. Have a look at how many children, including babies, go missing. Do your research on what happened in Bristol. How many barristers, police officers, social workers have been done for paedophilia. Have a look at how many children are running away from foster care. Have a look at the families that are connected to me. Have a look at their stories. We all ring with the same. We've all been given the same labels. We've all not had the correct assessments done. Majority of us are gagged. In fact, a couple were arrested and detained in prison a couple of weeks ago. Got a couple of other families that are facing committal to prisons. And in the next video, I'll also tell you how I ended up with 2-year committal to prison, which I got vacated, and how they told the nation that there was a storm coming to London. I was that storm. Which again, 28th of October 2013. So not only is today 6 years since Aaron and Faith that we moved to Save the Family, it's 5 years to the day that I was going to be facing a 2-year committal to prison for breaking my gag. And every day, Aaron and Faith gag that. That's what I say to these people. Fucking gag that. Gag me all you like. I have a diagnosis with Asperger's. I have no filters. There is fuck all that these people can do about it. And like I told them, put me in prison. I will educate every single person that you've got in there, and I will help every single person in there. And if you section me, I will meditate, I will pray, I will keep myself going. And if you lock me down, I will keep coming back out. And when you do finally let me out, I will keep trying again. And if you keep me in prison, then I will be the female version of a Charlie Bronson. Not that you can call him Charlie Bronson now, because he's changed his name. But I will be the female version of it. And at the end of the day, they will never take my heart, my mind and soul. They will never take my joy. They will never take my happiness. And I will never, ever allow for any adversary to break me and take me down. And I will constantly tell myself, with every breakdown comes a breakthrough. And I don't care how many times I cry, how many times this hurts me, how many layers I have to shed. I don't care how many times I want to take my life, how many times I want to jump out of a window. I don't care how many times I feel like walking in front of a bus. I will keep getting up. And the same as I tell my kids, it's not how many times you get dropped down, it's how many times you get back up. And every time these cunts knock me down, I will get back up again, and I will get back up again. And do you know what? And Portsmouth Council, yeah, here is a letter. In fact, this one. This is a letter. Just to end this. I am writing in regards to your complaint that I made over the phone on the 9th of October. The complaint about building noise that goes on all day, and about you advise us that your children removed under your care provision while your partner has no tolerance to the noise, blah, blah, blah. Stated you have Asperger's, you're high sensory overload, and that this place is unsuitable. That's my complaint. And they issue a complaint against me. On the 2nd, while the housing officer was at your home undertaking a home visit, you were shouting and swearing at her, causing her alarm and distress. During this conversation, you referred to the housing manager as an obnoxious cunt. No, I didn't. Actually, what I told her is, Eva, you cannot see from my point of view, which means that you do not serve my family. So I suggest you leave, and I will replace you with somebody else. Lying bastards. We spoke to our customer services where you advised that your partner had the potential to kill someone to protect his family. That's not what I said. What I said was, at the end of the day, we are having so much shit here that if anyone steps to Dean, as is what just happened last week, Dean will end up going to prison because he will defend himself. Now, this is true. You left a note in the elevator for management where you advised that you might dangle somebody off the 17th floor. I was joking. I put a note in the lift to say, prior to any work commencing, can you please let me knock on my door? Because obviously I've got double buggy and kids to get down. And in the corner I wrote, or I might dangle you off the 17th floor. But they get me. They know me here. But anyway, yes, this is how. It's as easy as that to take your kids. Easy as that. Because at the end of the day, it's about somebody's opinion of you. And as I've been saying this week, I don't give a shit what people think about me. I don't give a shit what people's personal opinion of me. I know the truth. I was there. I know what happened. And I can say 100%, I never hurt a hair on my kids and never would. In 22 years of parenting, I've never even smacked my children. I'm a good person. And this country doesn't like that. They will never take my soul. They will never take my integrity. And it doesn't matter what these people do to me. Even when I was raped by 6 people at the age of 11, I got up and said, you might have got my body, but you will never get my soul. And I'm going to tell it to everybody else out there, the trolls, the lot. Do you understand? It doesn't matter what you do to me. You will never get my spirit, my heart, and you don't have the keys to drive my car. I have the keys to my life. I'm the driver of my car, and there is nobody who can try taking over my direction and make me run to their pace, because it just isn't happening. And like, before I go, and I'll say this to you parents out there, no piece of paper, ever adoption order or says you're in foster care, takes away you being a mother or a father. And if you have to go to the ends of the earth to defend and protect your family, then that is what you do. Because these people cannot continue coming into our families, destroying our families, doing the devil's dirty deeded work, ripping us, alienating us, separating us, treating people with physical conditions like criminals, taking our children, offshoring them in their, what I call a, what do I call it? I have a word for it. I call it a, I have a word for it. I can't think what I call it, but I do call it something. And employment racket, that's what I call it. I call it employment racket. And offshoring children and trafficking children, and people like Nadim Sawali, or whatever he calls himself, championing adoption, championing foster care, and making it out that our children are abused and neglected and that we are child abusers. If I was a child abuser, I got a 22-year-old an 18-year-old, and laying in bed there, I got a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old. It's Aaron and Faith they've got. And if I was a child abuser, like I keep saying on this video, I'd be in prison. I'm a little bit hurt. When I'm hurt, I keep talking. I know nobody's going to sit and watch through this video for me talking for all this time. At the end of the day, they're not even for you guys. They're for Aaron and Faith. And they're my way of coping. It's my way of dealing with today. Because I knew that today, if I didn't set myself to do something, and I said on the 28th at 8 o'clock, I would go live and do this video. And by doing that, that helps me deal with the day. So I've been able to get up and do normal things because I knew I'd set this time apart. And you've seen me on this video speak to you, go up, you've seen me break down, you've seen me get annoyed, you've seen me get angry. I have emotional intelligence. I don't wear a mask. What you see is what you get. If I want to be a roaring lion who bites your fucking head off, I will bite your fucking head off. If I want to be happy and joyful, I will be happy and joyful. Nobody out there will tell me how I can feel, how I think, and what I can do. I was given free will to make a choice. I choose not to revenge these people. I choose to forgive these people. And I choose to continue fighting. I shouldn't even say fighting, I don't like that word. But I continue to keep telling my truth, telling my story, and being true and authentic. Because the only people I give a shit about is my kids and my partner, and my family. I'm learning. My friends, I don't know. And I do give a damn about the parents out there, because tomorrow another child is going to be taken. The next day another child is being taken. Right now there's families in court with their children still in foster care, facing the fact that they're going to be forced adopted. And this system has to stop. And the only people that can do it is us. And we have to get out of our beds. If you're drinking, if you're in drugs, fucking get rid of it. And you have to get yourself into a situation that you are mentally and physically just as strong. Be stronger than me. If you can get there before me, if you can hold this adoption drive, you fucking take the baton off me and you run. If you can do something that you think that you can do better than me, go do it. You know, I'm not here to fill anybody's egos. I'm not here to, I'm just here to tell you to stand firm. Yeah, let nothing move you. Do not let these people move you. You stand firm in your own truth, your own integrity. And even when you go into court, and I'm going to talk about this more on the next video, and I'm sorry you've got to wait a month for it, but these dates are very significant, and they're for a reason as well, because they hit on dates with what's going on with the rest of the world as well. And obviously on the 13th of December, I'm also going to talk about Home for Christmas. And I'm going to get very professional with my YouTube as well, because I want to make sure we're going viral. I want to make sure our message is going worldwide. I might be gagged. They've even got my YouTube gagged. I need 49 new subscribers to be able to push me to be able to monopolize this way as well. So if you please do, if you haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button. And also if I'm going live, that means it will email you and let you know that I've gone live, or send you the video. Even if you don't want to watch them, please like them, please comment, please stick some hearts up, because otherwise these people and reporters, they look and they go, oh, there's not many likes on that, or there's not many views. Don't worry about it. People aren't following her. They're not getting our message. So the more likes, the more hearts, the more news, the more interaction, the more stuff. So when these people come and look at my social media, they go, holy shit, this girl has got a fucking army behind her, and she's coming fast, and she's coming hard, and every year she gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And before I go, when you get up tomorrow, you chant this: every day in every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And I don't care how you're feeling tomorrow, you get up and you bounce around that house and you sing it out loud. Every day in every way I'm getting better and better. Every day in every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. And every day you look in that mirror and you tell yourself, whatever these people do to you, it makes you stronger. Whatever these people do to you, it makes you better. It doesn't matter how much someone persecutes you, it makes you stronger and tougher. It doesn't matter how much they kick you, you get back up. And if you don't feel like doing that, then come and see me and I'll fucking kick your ass and get you up. But yeah, I can't believe I've been on. I have no idea what the interaction has been. I'm really sorry that I haven't been able to read messages because I'm just literally running off and chatting. A massive big thank you to people who've sat here for the whole nearly 2 hours listening to me. And to those that have just flitted in and out. I'm probably now going to shoot over onto my social media and just say hello. And I'm going to get some proper structure to make sure that every Monday I'm over on my social media, and I'm going to start bringing my coaching out as well. So my videos aren't necessarily just going to be talking about my story, but I'm going to start using coaching, teach you how you self-sabotage, teach you how child abuse fragments you. I'm going to teach you what exactly borderline personality really is and how you come through the other side of it, even bipolar, all these trauma things. And I want to make sure that people are not turning to this system. I'm going to teach as many people to go self-employed, away from the system, whether you've got physical condition or mental health. I'm also going to teach you how to use YouTube to monopolize, to talk about your story, whether it is mental health. And I don't care if you're a raging fucking lunatic, schizophrenic, paranoid, whatever, get on YouTube and tell the world about it. And that way you don't have to be on benefits. And they can't control you. And also, if you keep yourself public, they can't section you and they can't make you disappear either, because they know full well that if they make a martyr out of me, that they do know that there are people, they do know that you're sitting in the background somewhere. When they took Aaron and assaulted me back last September, they knew full well that when I said, I am coming to get my son, and if you do not, this is what's going to happen, then, you know, you wish you could leave UK. If you need to leave the UK, leave the UK. But at the end of the day, this is my country. This is my back door. And I am not deserting my country. Just because these cunts want to fuck it up, I'm staying. I don't care whether this is a sinking ship. I'm staying. And if these cunts don't get it right, well, then I will become the captain of the ship that will lead this country back into, you know, amazing empowerment, because it's time that we took back our power. Take back your heart, mind and soul. Know who you are and what you are here to do, and don't focus on what anybody else is doing. Focus in what your path is and run at your pace and work to your speed, and know in your heart of heart that what you're doing is right, and live with purpose, live with passion, and live with integrity. And as long as you're doing that and we're all working in the right direction, then we can get this thing back on course and actually get to a point where we can actually put the great, I sound like Donald Trump now, but actually I was saying it before him. He's actually stolen my words, the bastard, you know, and I can prove it. You know, we've got to put the great back in Great Britain, and, you know, we do need an empowering system. Sorry, every time I go to it's because there's messages going on. Please do, guys, connect with each other, chat with each other. The only thing that I do say is do not fearmonger anybody around me. If you fearmonger people to run, to do whatever it needs to do, then, you know, I won't tolerate it, because I had people do that when I was pregnant with with Elijah and Shiloh. And at the end of the day, I've been through social twice here, and each time I've beaten it and I've come through the other side, because at the end of the day, the only knowledge is empowerment. The more knowledge that you have, you've got a court order in place preventing your child leaving. And let me tell you something. And I was 19 when I spoke to you earlier on, when I was talking earlier on, and I got taken into hospital when I was 19. I didn't know that there were orders in place that took my son and placed him with his father at his grandparents'. I didn't know there was pieces of paper. All I knew is I got out of the hospital and my son was not with my mum, with dad at home. I did not know that my ex-partner had been told to leave and take my son with him because I was a raging fucking loony. My mum drove me all the way, and on the way I rang the army and told them that my ex-husband had done AWOL, and I literally knocked on the door and I took my son back. I only found out that there was orders on them at that time when I got all my paperwork this time. And do you know what? Nobody ever come and said anything, nothing. Nobody did anything. Obviously, that was back in 2001, I think it was. But anyway, there's lots of stuff that we can do. I don't know how all this common law stuff is working. I am going to go there myself. Portia's just saying, do you have any way that we can connect? It's just literally just, I think she's talking to Carl, not me. But anyway, if you do want to connect with me, I'm a bit of a stroppy cow at the moment. I'm quite a narky bitch. Until I've moved out of this property, because I've only got one front door, and I am a bit nervous because there's so much stuff going on at the moment. And until I am out of this FEMA camp and I know that my family is safe and out of this system, we have found a private landlord, and yeah, I just want to move, but I've got a van to hire and all that sort of stuff that is really a bit of a challenge. So I've got 3 cases going on this week that do have my time, and these are the ones that we've got the an adjournment on, and I do want to be able to help these parents. And sometimes it is just about how you react to people and how you deal with the false accusations. It's not necessarily what they write, it's how you react to it. And I didn't react to it very well, as you see. And the more children and families that we can help get, things in place, the better. So anyway, I have no idea who's watched this. I have no idea who I'm talking to. All I hope is that there's a little girl called Faith that wants to be a detective, who knows what her mum's name is. I drilled it into them when they were kids. In fact, whenever we used to go to festivals, I used to write on my children's hands, if this child should dare to roam, box its ears and send it home. And I used to put my name and my number. They've had it in their bags, they've had it in their books, they've had it written in their jackets. So my kids know that I'm Kelly with an IE. They know my surname. Aaron is using Minecraft. And, Faith is, the clogs are ticking. My children are 8 and 9 now. So, I wouldn't be surprised if one day I tag myself that I'm live somewhere, and 3 or 4 minutes later I turn around and there's 2 little kids that have been following my social media. And, I'll know my children. I don't care how long it's been. I know full well that they can't remove that bond. And if you've watched anything from the adoption drive, by the way, to any parents out there, all of these children that have been adopted are basically saying they're coming looking for their parents. And on all of the questionnaires from BASWA, all of the children in foster care said the moment they turn 18 they're going to find their parents. They were a bit shocked by the amount of children that said this. So anyway, yeah, I'm just going to go and chill out for a bit. I think I'm going to have a bit of a cry, actually. I do feel like I need a bit of a cry. I'm going to have lots of other different YouTubes on different subjects, but I'm going to be back definitely on the 13th of December talking exactly from when I picked myself up from the wall, and once everything had got into court, and I'm going to show you literally step by step how that court system went and how they took Aaron and Faith. But I'm going to wait until then, because otherwise it would be more and more messages. So anyway, guys, you connect up with each other, have a chat with each other. I have got some videos on my YouTube, by the way, that shows what section 20 is, what section 47 is. I think I've done section 7, what all these different things mean and how they use them, and eventually, after I've moved and settled, and then Elijah's going to nursery, and I can basically, work in a more efficient, because I'm going to have to go to work to be able to fund this cause, because every time I ask for any form of support, I get told that I'm, fraudulently claiming and all this sort of stuff. So I am going to set these up as proper businesses, and I am going to go to my friends who are the secret millionaires and basically say, look, I need some money off you guys because I need some legal teams for these parents. And I do want to build up a good solid network with legals that I trust, that if I say, look, I've spoken to this parent, I need you in there, that they go, and that's it. Go, 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 go. And literally, I'm going to try and build this system from within us. But, you know, I've got a label that says I'm grandeur. But we got this far, guys. You know, come on. I only came into this July 2013. And literally, we got adoption as the last resort. We got 39 law changes. And we are still going. And we're going to keep going. And we're going to keep going. And we're going to keep going. Until eventually, you know, this little problem's going to go away. And we're going to have a lovely, empowering system where people are helped. And... yeah, if not, we're going to go to war and we're going to have World War III and we're going to start again. One of them's coming. So anyway, for those of you who have been with me, like, for the last 8 years, just thank you. I don't know why you're still here, but you are. And if you've never spoken to me, you know, I do like my PMs. Just be honest with me. You know, don't message me and ask me how I'm doing. If really you just want to dump your shit on me. If you need to dump some shit, then please say you're going to dump some shit on me. I just rather transparency and honesty. And the quicker you tell me what the root of the problem is with your case, genuine, real root, not the what you're avoiding or don't want to say, the quicker you're honest with me, the quicker we can get to the solution. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm certainly not here to persecute any parents. And I can handle pretty much anything that you actually say to me. Some of the things that I've had to hear and say here, you know, have been devastating. You know, I'm a bit of an emotional person. I do take things personally. When I get trolled, I do get upset by it because my intentions are really good. I just don't want people to know the pain that I know. And unfortunately, I didn't realise that there were so many of us out there that already do know this pain. And if somebody could have come to me the way I speak to parents, then I think I would still have Aaron and Faith. You know, but with all the fear mongering that's out there, all this, they're kidnappers and all this sort of stuff, isn't helping. You know, what people need to know is understand the process that they're in, understand, you know, from both sides of the coin, really. And once you do that, then you can navigate yourself through this system quite safely. And yeah. It is about understanding the process that you're in. It really does make a difference, and when you do, it does make things easier. But anyway, you know, Aaron and Faith, I love you, I miss you, I think about you every day. Not one day goes by where you're not on my heart and I'm not in my mind and I'm not constantly thinking about ways of getting you home, and I'm constantly working towards getting myself into a situation for you to come home. At the end of the day, you know, they took my kids, they took my business, they took my car, they took my home, and I ended up out on the streets. And you know, we turned that into Walk for Justice. You know, we went from Scotland to London, you know, 3 times with Sid to try and find as many people as possible who have been affected by this system. You know, I've moved around and I had literally paperwork with me. I've slept on the streets. I've sofa hopped, and you know, literally Dean and I met on Downing Street when I was protesting in July 2015, and we went off to Bristol to build a life, where Dean then got held on remand and I ended up on the streets again. But literally from January we come to Portsmouth, found out I was pregnant. And we've given birth to 2 beautiful boys. Our relationship is a bit rocky because we've got so many people causing shit for us at the moment. And also we're dealing with our own baggage. And people are trying to convince Dean that I work for the state. I'm an MI5 agent. There's blogs that say I'm an MI5 agent. People even say that I haven't had my kids taken, that I'm a shill and all this sort of shit. There's even actually rumours that FEA is actually the original paedophile circle and it's just a cover. There's loads of shit going on. So you know, at the moment, I just need to move. I'm looking forward to preparing for winter. I'm going to get more structured with this stuff because I need a life here. Um, so, yeah, but anyway, to any of you who feel like that right now, get your shit together and get up. Because if things don't start changing, we need real foot soldiers. It is getting to that point, I'm afraid. And we need people who are going to stand with families and say, no, you're not taking these kids. There are people out there talking about common law. Try it. If it works for you, let us know. I don't know. I'm not in that situation to do this. And I'm just literally building up for the next stage of Aaron and Faith. I've just had my letter and I just want to move. And as soon as I've moved, then I'm going to get this paperwork back together and get back in and sort shit out. So anyway, I can't believe how long I've spoken. I need a brew. And yeah, stay strong, guys. Just stay strong. Find out who you are and what your purpose is and start doing that. And if you haven't told your story and you're worried about getting gagged, there's many ways around it. You don't even have, like me, I mean, I say Aaron and Faith, but I could say my daughter, my son. I don't have to mention the people that took it. You don't have to. You can talk about your story. You're not talking about your case. There's a difference between telling your story and talking about your case. And you can say things like, my children were taken. That's not breaking your gag. You can say, my son, my little man, my angel, my princess. You can refer to them by the first name, not the second name. There's lots of different ways around these gagging orders. And as long as you... It's a game of chess, really, isn't it? But just remember, with every game of chess, all the pieces go back in the box. The box closes. And my fella says, he says, I am the box. He goes, it's their game, but I'm the box that the pieces go back into. So yeah, it's been a tough... October for me is always tough. I find October has so many raw memories, so much trauma, and so much goes on in October with the adoption drive. The fact that my letter comes in October, the fact that it's the day that I moved into this chapter that caused all this. Yeah, you know, shit happens and we die, hey, from the cradle to the grave. It's the journey in between. And we're all in this for a reason, whether you believe it or not. And until you realise what your purpose is in this, we can't all come together as one, because we're not all here to do the same job. If you want to troll me and say it's the Kelly Show, then make your own channel. You know, we're not all meant to do the same thing. You're not meant to try to do what I'm doing. I'm not meant to be doing what you're doing. Some of you will be keyboard warriors. Some of you will be the letter writers. Some of you will be the protesters. Some of you will be the voice. Some of you will be able to help out in legal. Some of you will go into mental health. Some of you will become support workers. You know, we can all do our part. We can all do our bit. Some of you may be the photographer. Some of you may film. Some of you, do you know what I mean? We're all different parts of the whole body. But if you focus on never seeing your kids again, that will be your reality. If you keep focusing on Home for Christmas, it means you're focusing on bringing your kids home. And even if it's not this year, it might be next year. But one day, all of our kids are going to come home. So there's no reason that none of our kids can't come home. Unless you really are an absolute fucking raging child abuser. But you know what? Even kids, you know, I know people who forgive their fathers for beating the living daylights out of them. In fact, my fella is one of them. I'm one of them. My dad's never hit me, by the way, but my mum used to be. You know, and... You know, sometimes people can only deal with their trauma by dealing with the person who did it. And, you know, unfortunately, we do need a system that protects children. But right now, we need a system that protects children that are taken within the care system. So, yeah, and obviously to Aaron and Faith's adopters, if you're watching this, you know, please know that I love my children and I am bringing my children home. You're not a forever family. You're just a temporary home. And on that note, guys, stay strong, live long, and fucking just, I don't know, just every day in every way we get stronger and stronger. Catch you later, guys. Love to you lot. Bye. I don't know how to turn this freaking thing off. How do I turn it off? Come on, turn off. There we go.